Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspective Philosophy, where we try to better our perceptions of the world through philosophical discussion. Thank you all for joining me tonight. So tonight I'm going to be responding to Hasanabi on veganism. I think that should be quite interesting. See how it goes, and hopefully everyone is actually managed to be here because essentially, I don't know, the tech issues again. What a surprise. So we're going to get into it. So Hassan is, for anyone who doesn't know and somehow managed, oh my lord. Hassan, for anyone who doesn't know, is the largest, or one of the largest streaming platforms. He's just the entire platform. He's that big. No, Hassan is one of the largest streamers on Twitch. He's primarily left-wing and he came from the Young Turks. I haven't actually watched much of Hassan. I've watched very little of Hassan, actually. Next to none. So this should be interesting. I don't know how he's going to react to vegans. I don't know whether he's going to call us all like ridiculous. I skipped through some of the video to try and find something that would like give us an idea of how he's going to react. And this is what I got. He thinks humans are more valuable in and of themselves. That doesn't necessarily tell us very much. I don't know if he's sympathetic to vegans. I don't know whether he hates us. I don't know whether he's like all about hunting. I don't know anything. So this should be pretty interesting. And my lovely co-assistant, my lovely girlfriend, made a few like overlays for this stream. So there'll be a point when I get to throw them in. So yeah, let's just get into it. So as you can see, I'm responding to this video that is Hassan responding to another video. So Hassan reacts to, is eating animals wrong? Hunters versus vegans. Anyway, before we begin, let me know what you think. Is eating animals wrong, guys? I don't have an opinion on this, clearly. I mean, like, it's not like my whole channel is based around this argument. They are jellyfishes. Thank you for noticing. I don't know a single vegan who values non-human life over human life, but I know plenty of people who don't value human lives or non-human animals and aren't vegan. I think that's a good point, man. If he talks about veganism, it's usually about how he finds vegans in his community annoying. Okay, good. Let's annoy the shit out of him. Let's go.
If we were all born like 3 centuries from now, the world has been globalized and like agriculture can reach every corner of the globe. How would that affect, if at all, your views or your choices?
Am I going to be judged if I say not at all?
I became vegan because I could no longer think about eating something that was once living and breathing.
The primary thing that keeps me vegan is always the animal liberation.
Yes, represent. It's about animal liberation. That's all it's about. Like, vegans only care about animal liberation, guys. Like, I mean, it's not all we care about, but like, it's the only reason you go vegan. You don't go vegan for the environment. You don't go vegan for anything but the exploitation of animals. Like, you aren't vegan if you're vegan because you're trying to lose weight, and that's what you care about.
The idea that we are trying to push our ideas onto others, that stereotype I've experienced the most.
Hunting is a very...
That is actually the stereotype I've experienced the most, and the worst point of it all is it's usually vegans like, would you please stop pushing your ideology onto people? And by people I mean animals, and by pushing ideology I mean like murdering them, like, you know.
Very hard concept for people to understand. I am in Texas, it's a lot more acceptable, even though being a woman who hunts, people still, have a really hard time with that concept.
I don't care that you're a woman who hunts. I think you're equally as bad as the male hunters. Does that count for anything? Like, can I think you're equally as much of a bad person?
I feel like a lot of people think vegans are more effeminate. People will question your sexuality oftentimes.
I grew
That
up...
is unfortunately true. Like, people genuinely do think vegans are more effeminate. It's quite like the opposite. Ironically, at least if you take testosterone to be a fundamental factor in terms of masculinity, although it's not, I guess really it's a fundamental factor in terms of sex itself. But vegans have higher free testosterone than non-vegans. So, in terms of being likely to be more effeminate because of our diets, it's quite the opposite. Like, vegans are more likely to have more male traits, not necessarily masculine, because I do see a distinction between gender and sex, but more male traits anyway.
In a rural village, living off the land, the way we live is in total respect to the animals, and I think there's so much that
Wait, is that not wrong? Wait, really? Do people say like, oh, you're vegan? I just assume if someone's a vegan that they're a liberal, like at the most.
Liberal at the most. What does that even mean? Like, I'm like clearly right wing, so right wing. Like, you know, like don't tread on me. Nah, but seriously, I think vegans are like on like the left. Like, I'm yet to meet a right. Actually, I think Foot Soldier, I think he's right wing and he's a vegan. There are right wing vegans, guys. You don't have to be a liberal or whatever to be vegan. It's not necessarily politically left.
Yes, all the time. Vegan female trait. I'm vegan, but I understand that hunting is a part of native tradition.
I don't give a shit if it's. I just want to say this right now. I don't care that it's a part of native tradition. I don't care that traditions like involve hunting. Like, if you look at like every culture in the world, there are traditions involving animal consumption, including our culture. It's still wrong. It doesn't matter. Like natives, like Native Americans, other indigenous populations. I'm sorry, I genuinely don't care. It's the same thing with like female genital mutilation in certain cultures. I think that's absolutely appalling. I would not condone female genital mutilation. I think that is, it's wrong. I don't care that there's traditions tied to it. And for over 300, 400 years now, we've learned that tradition isn't self-justifying. We can't just go, oh, because it's traditional, it's okay. No, if it's traditional and it hurts people, if it's traditional and it enslaves people, if it's traditional and it, you know, perpetuates some sort of suffering onto the world, then no, it's not okay.
people do not know about indigenous culture.
We brought vegans and hunters to spark a dialogue. Wait, only 2 hunters? Where's the third one? Unfortunately, one cast member was unable to attend the day of filming, but we still love the conversation we wanted to share with you. Damn, the third hunter bailed, dude.
Sounds about right, doesn't it?
He's too busy hunting. That's what he was doing. Sorry,
My name
I'm
is
out
Danny.
hunting you
I'm
pussies.
queer, I'm vegan, and I'm multiracial.
Hi, my name is Don Marvens. I've been a vegan for coming on 6 years now. I'm a freelance photographer and I recently moved to the LA area.
My name is Nina. I'm 24. I've been vegan for coming up on 5 years now, and I'm a professional astrologer.
What the hell's a professional astrologer? Does anyone in chat know what a professional astrologer is? But barbecue meat is part of my American. Do you not respect my American culture? No, man. That's it. Like, I can't wait to have a debate with an Aussie and tell him that, like, you can't put a shrimp on the barbie. Like, that is, like, it's, I don't care if it's part of your culture. You can't put a shrimp on the barbie. Oh, mate. No, so come on, guys. What is professional? Was it a professional astrologer? Did you say horoscopes? No, please tell us that's not the representation of veganism. How do they cast these people? How do they even find them? Like who have representing veganism? There is meaning in the stars.
Hi, my name is Brittany. I'm Koya Kondene.
No. You're not allowed to represent veganism with people who look at stars and tell people how their lives are going to turn out. That is not okay.
Alaska. I'm a first-generation college graduate, and I went to school in the California area, and I'm currently on a road trip visiting.
Dude, it's great. Indigenous people auto like lock vegans into a shitty argument because like they could just immediately be like, "You're not respecting my traditions."
I'm not respecting the traditions if they harm animals. Don't care. Like it's kind of like I don't know, man. Like I just don't think that people should respect traditions that perpetuate slavery. Like I wouldn't respect apartheid in South Africa. Like so why would I respect indigenous hunting? Like nah, not at all. Like that's just disgusting, right? Like there's times when culture is good, where we can look to culture and say that it is, it's beautiful, it enriches people's lives. And I have no doubt that in indigenous cultures, that beauty exists, that they have great traditions, that they have ways to, express themselves and their subjectivity in ways that my culture doesn't allow for. And that is their identity. And I 100% respect that. Until they then start using that culture to then enslave another individual or another culture. Would I say, let's take the culture of Israel. Do I think that it justifies the enslavement of Palestine? No, I don't actually. And I think anyone perpetuating this sort of cultural dogmatism needs to really wake up and, smell the hypocrisy. The reality of the situation is we're also locking indigenous people into a cultural narrative that of 300 years ago. I want indigenous people to take responsibility for their culture in a modern age, in an age where they can learn and do better and enrich their culture and make it better than it was. Because if they own their culture, if they truly own their culture and it's not being destroyed by colonialism, it shouldn't be characterized by when it was destroyed by colonialism. Just because it was part of their traditions doesn't mean that they can't reject their traditions like we have and progress onto something new. It's their culture and it's their decision.
And most vegan people are still like, they're super lib. A lot of them are rad libs, so they're just not going to be able to fucking counter that. Actually, I don't know. I don't know because, like, we'll see. Because some vegans will just, like, immediately be like, there's the edge cases of vegans that, like, will literally fucking turn around and just straight up be like, well, you wouldn't eat a disabled person,
That's, like, literally me. Like, like I am that, but would you eat a disabled person? Because if you wouldn't, then you shouldn't eat a disabled animal. No, you shouldn't eat animals. You shouldn't eat disabled people. You shouldn't eat anyone who feels.
You know what I mean? Like, they want to immediately jump to the name the trade argument.
I wouldn't jump to name the trade because I actually have a whole series criticizing name the trade, and along that I've actually both me, Shadow Starshine, Vegan Foot Soldier, we made like loads of videos criticizing name the trait, and name the trait has now evolved into something that we don't criticize it, but it's just a modal marginal cases. It's not an argument that I use. It's not an argument that I'm especially fond of. And it's an argument I've been heavily critical of. So, like, no, like, the only people that use named, I mean, what he wants to say is maybe marginal cases. Like, I do use marginal cases. I don't think there's a problem with that. I think that it's just to show the hypocrisy of some people's ethical positions. Like, why would you use intelligence in one scenario but not in another? And it's all the time just to try and justify their own, desires and their own ways of life. And I think that's just the crack.
Anyway.
We stand here.
Oh no!
Define.
I need. I actually really should have like Prime. What is it? Is it like? Yeah, it's like
Friends to learn whose land I'm on.
I am Carly. I'm from Texas. I'm a wife, a mom. I also do sales and marketing consulting.
The first prompt is, I care about animals' well-being. Walk forward if you agree.
Hunters. The thing is that like, what do we like? I think care is such a good word to use because like care, concern, the idea of actually engaging with what the other is, and in continental philosophy, like the philosophy of Heidegger or the philosophy of Sartre, like the idea of care, the idea of being with, these are like very well defined. These are very well like developed. Now, I think that you can't care about an animal and consume them. I don't think that you could genuinely respect the interest of an animal and slaughter it for your own selfish desire, for your own taste sensation. Let's be honest, you don't need to eat animals for nutrition. Like, it's very well covered now. We know that in terms of nutrition, you can live happily, healthily on a vegan diet, and you can do it for cheap as hell as well. So when it comes down to nutrition, and that's not an argument anymore. So when we look to what it's about, it's convenience and it's taste. So trivial interests versus vital interests. The trivial interests of a human, taste, sensation, pleasure, versus the vital interests of an animal. Life, liberty, the ability to not like the well-being of the animal. And I think well-being is incredibly important. I think that hunters usually like to put themselves on a pedestal compared to other meat eaters because they're like, all right, well, the animal roams wild, before I kill it. And it's like, yeah, and it would have probably kept roaming wild if you hadn't killed it, man. Then they like to say like, oh, well, we care about the well-being of animals because we try to conserve like environments. We try to stop. We've killed all of the apex predators, and now it's our responsibility to take the role of the apex predator and kill everything. It's like as if there's no other alternatives, as if trap and release is absolutely impossible, as if we couldn't look into gene drives like we're doing for various species of mosquitoes and so on to make certain animals infertile so that they don't overpopulate. It's this one-track mindset, and it's like, look, you're not even trying to kill them in a humane way. Like, your idea of humane is I'm going to shoot you in the head or like shoot you in the heart.
Snow donated £5. I care about your well-being, liberal vegan.
Oh, thank you, Snow. Filthy liberal vegan. No, but that's exactly right. Like, I just think that it's absolutely hypocritical. Like, a lot of the time, actually, this whole conservative, conservationist perspective of animal liberation. Oh, thank you very much. Not animal liberation, animal well-being through hunting. I kill animals only because I care about them. I wish they didn't starve and so on like that. But a lot of the time, the animals they're killing aren't necessarily the problem. And the way they're killing them, like there's people killing them with crossbows, people killing them with freaking spears and shit. Like, and it's not like we're catching animals, trapping them and then giving them like a lethal injection or something like that. No, it's and then what a lot of it comes down to is like hunting permits are incredibly valuable for certain states. Like if they can sell hunting permits so that they can generate revenue, they like to say that's going into conservation schemes, but those conservation schemes themselves are usually speciesist. Like they're killing certain types of animals to preserve like a rare species. You want to know like a hot take here? I don't give a shit about a rare species. I don't care if a species is unbelievably uncommon. Actually I have this book, right? So this book is I don't know if anyone's read it. So it's like the snow leopard, right? And then when this was written, like only 2 people at the time. So two Westerners at the time had seen snow leopards. The rarest and most beautiful of the great cats, right? I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't care about snow leopards. I don't think they're more important than any other cat. I think that they're beautiful, but that beauty doesn't justify saving them over any other animal, right? That rarity, that species, it has no inherent value. It's aesthetics, and in that. It doesn't look, take this. I got this through my door. I think it was through my door. I might have got this actually a while ago. But this is, what is it? Grandma, what's a gorilla? Right? And it's like an appeal to save gorillas. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I want to save gorillas, right? I care about gorillas. I don't want anyone harming them. But a gorilla isn't valuable just because you can show your grandkid. Like, that's all it's about. It's about aesthetics. It's about who can show their grandkids like animals that, are rare and amazing. It's about like humans seeing them. It's about human aesthetic value. It's about us. It's not about them. The snow leopard hasn't got any value in itself. It's just because it looks nice. The rhino has no value in itself. It's just because it's cool looking, man. Like the reality of the situation is that there are billions of animals dying all the time, going extinct all the time as we deforest the Amazon rainforest for animal agriculture. But nobody cares because 1, they want to consume animal products because they taste nice, and 2, they're probably insects, look a bit disgusting, and people don't actually care about biodiversity itself. Like, there is nothing inherently valuable about biodiversity other than its ability to stabilize an ecosystem, which then facilitates that biodiversity. So, like, the reality of the situation, I'm sick of this like stupid argument where I'm supposed to care about certain animals over others. I'm supposed to care about the arguments of hunters where they're trying to be conservationists when they're not really conservationists, and it's just a way to justify their own selfish interests and their own cultural mindset, and a lot of the time their own egoism, right? Their own egotism, their ability to like grandiose personas like Joe Rogan, like bragging about how he goes out and he shoots deer, and it's like, oh right, yeah, but it's not sustainable for the most of the American population, so like why would you perpetuate such that norm? So yeah, anyway, we're gonna get back into it.
Is that surprising to y'all that 2 hunters walked over?
I would love to hear why. Yeah, I would love to hear it.
Hunters have the utmost.
Bro, I feel like he's gonna drop some fucking lines, dude. Okay. I feel like he's spicy. Okay. He already started out with like, I'm multiracial. I was like, oh God, here we go. I wonder what he's gonna say.
Respect for animals. And I think that's a really hard thing for people to see. How can you love something and respect something that you kill? It's just a hard concept, right? Conservation is a big reason why I hunt. It not only provides food.
It's always conservation
for my family, but I can shoot a certain number of deer each year, and that will keep that population and that herd thriving.
I guess I'm
like, as if I'm like one, right? Like, as if I'm supposed, like, if you can shoot a number of deer, let's say, just imagine the just trunking these deer instead, and then like making them infertile. So let's say we shoot a number of males, and then performed, essentially, like neuter them, and then put them back out. Like, cool, we've just managed to control the deer population in a way that is probably more effective in kind of more effective in the long run. But obviously it takes time, so we might have to shoot more, might have to track more, might require more resources. But it's not an option, man, because the reality of the situation is we don't care about the animal's well-being. We care about like something, a grandiose abstract concept, and it's a way to justify what they're like doing. It's like let's be honest, the apex predators are dead in the first place because people were hunting them.
I've never really came at this conversation from like a angle of vegans versus hunters. It's always vegans versus a meat eater. Mm-hmm. So I understand in a sense the respect you have to what you're doing. I just know that I could never do that.
Yeah, and I think that for me is one of my maybe more bigger issues, is not with vegans, but it's more people who eat meat but don't understand hunting. So you're gonna eat meat that was slaughtered at a factory, right. But I can't just give a deer one swift, great bullet in the heart where it dies out where it's supposed to die.
Like the thing is, well, it's not really dying where it's supposed to die, because like you don't really get to decide where. You shouldn't have to decide like where it's supposed to die. Like, oh, it was supposed to die right where I shot it, guys. Like I saw it in the stars. I mean, you should ask the professional astronomer. Like I don't get it. Like don't get me wrong. I understand that it's more ethical than something like factory farming, like in the sense that like the animal hasn't been like suffering for the last 10 years or so, about 5 years or something. But it also is like way leaner. Like these like game animals are way leaner, have much lower calories. You're not feeding your family for very long. You are going out and buying meat as well. So don't act like hunters are whatever. Hunters are so much better. We just hunt and that's it. And we don't perpetuate the evil industry. It's like you eat meat as well and you go and buy it from a farm. Don't act like you don't.
I was one of those people that said I could never even be vegetarian. Like I was probably like the people that you're describing, just not having a connection to what they're eating. I didn't think about it. And then
vegetarians are gonna get mad at me for saying this, but they're cowards, okay?
That's a base take. Vegetarians are cowards.
Vegetarians are when you're like, yeah, I don't really like to eat meat. I think fucking cow rape is still acceptable.
That's exactly right.
I think eating the child of chickens is acceptable. Diet vegan Andes, dude.
Actually, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good take, man. That was actually pretty good. But not only that, like just like to get back onto the respect thing, I would really like to understand what these people mean by respect. Like I really feel like when I think of respect, I think of like the Kantian kind of like treat an individual as an end in themselves, not a means to an end. But like it seems when they mean respect, it's usually like some sort of spiritual connotation. Like I respect you and I understand what you are. It's like, no, man. Like, if you punch me in the face, you're not respecting me. If you stab me, you're not respecting me. I don't know. I don't like. It's just absolutely ludicrous.
What's up? Yeah, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna suckle on a cow titty. Fuck it.
He's totally right, man.
Child is chicken period. Yeah. Okay, chicken period. Fine. So,
like the chicken period thing, I do get like it's quite spicy language, and people like it's more of like it's to give like a disgust response. But like the reason why that's actually wrong, right? In case anyone doesn't know, but like it's not because it's just a chicken period, right? It's because chickens, to even get to this situation, are all female, right? So remember, like only female chickens can lay eggs. So you need to produce only female chickens for this industry. Now, we don't just produce female chickens for this industry because like we can't control what sex a chicken's going to be. It could be male and it could be female. And if it's a male, 50% chance, it's just not profitable. So it just gets blended up, man. It just gets thrown into a macerator, a giant blender, and just dead. Sometimes they get gassed. So 50% of, so like before we've even started egg production, 50% of the chickens produced have already been killed. And then from that point, they're kept for about 3 years, I think it is. And they're kept in very small containers, sometimes so small they can't even spread their wings. In intensive farming, free range, there's still tens of thousands in a room. Chickens can't actually deal with that amount of chickens around them. They can only deal with what's called a pecking order of up to 100. So they basically lose their minds. They start attacking each other, incapable of dealing with the stress. So to stop them from ripping each other apart, they have to sear off their beaks. And they'd use a hot knife to do this, like a burning hot knife, melts their beaks off, basically, cuts through. And the beaks are basically like the cuticle of a fingernail, so it's incredibly painful, and they're not given any anesthetic. Then they grow so fast that, because they're genetically engineered, that a lot of them collapse under the weight of their own legs and stuff. I think egg production is usually more intensive anyway, because they've got to have the eggs fall down, so they've actually got usually in cages and stuff. Then on top of that, you've got the fact that they produce like 365 eggs a year. Like they produce an egg a day. Now, naturally, chickens produce between 12, once a month, and like 36, periods essentially, a year. So that's between 1 to 3 periods a month, right? Now, it's through genetic modification and selective breeding that we've ramped that up to 365. So it becomes so intense that it draws the calcium from their bones, and they start breaking their bones. And then after 3 years, they're all incapable of producing eggs. And so they're just en masse sent to slaughter. Sometimes even if the production drops, there could be up to 10,000 chickens in like a facility. And if production drops, rather than weaning out the ones that the production has dropped, they'll just send the entire facility to slaughter, and then replace all of the chickens in that area. Like Tyson Foods have done that. There's also the way they're killed is unbelievably brutal. Like they're put on essentially a belt where like a rotation, where they're like hung by their legs, and a razor blade slits their throat, like a rotor saw kind of thing, slits their throat. If the chicken is too long or too short, it doesn't hit their throat, so it can either slice the top of their head off or slice into their chest and they bleed out. They're supposed to be stunned. A lot of the time they're not stunned, and the stunning doesn't work. Sometimes the stunners go off. They're very temperamental. It's an unbelievably brutal process, and this is what vegetarians pay into. So he is right in calling vegetarians out, because vegetarians, there is no such thing as a vegetarian industry, guys. It doesn't exist. All vegetarians pay for the deaths of animals.
So okay, so is that a problem? Like eating chicken periods is a problem? I guess because it's like unethically sourced, right?
You can't really ethically source it either. That's the thing. So even if you're buying backyard hens, 50% of the males, all of the males have been killed before you've even bought the hens, man. There is no way to do this ethically. Maybe rescue chickens, and then after they abandon their eggs and stuff, but you'd have to keep them past the point, and when that's spent, it's something that possibly could be done, but it's not something that could be done en masse, and it's not something that can be done in general, like for everyone. It's far more, it's far simpler to say to people, go vegan, stop eating animal products.
As streaming services go, I found a little documentary through the suggestions.
But it changed your life.
And it changed my life. And I remember I went to brunch that morning and I had sausage and egg and fried cheese.
Inquiry, you're not necessarily in the wrong chat. I can see both chats, so don't worry.
And then that night I watched this documentary, and so that's why I'm vegan.
Oh, speaking of which, actually, I'd like to say hello to Shadow and Vegan Gaze, who I saw here before. Nice to see you here, guys.
Because I can't support us as an industry and as a populace removing the choice from that large of a swath of animal populations just because they're animals.
If there was...
Wait a minute, what did he say?
As the brunch that morning, and I had sausage and egg and fried cheese. And then that night I watched this documentary, and so that's why I'm vegan.
What documentary? Did that cut the documentary name out? Did that cut the name? Come on, man. You can't not even okay, right, so vegan documentaries. It's probably Earthlands, Dominion, Land of Hope and Glory. Dominion, I think, is Australian farms. Land of Hope and Glory is British farms. Earthlands is American farms and the global trade as a whole. So check those out, guys. They are really great documentaries.
Because I can't support us as an industry and as a populace removing the choice from that large of a swath of animal populations just because they're animals.
If there was a solution, the magic happens, the skies part, and all the meat is done in a way that is humane. There's no such thing as humane meat, man. Unless we're gonna say that you could humanely eat humans or something. It doesn't exist. By humane they mean painless, right? So if there was some sort of industry where God himself came down and said, look, I've managed to quell all of the agonizing pain and suffering that animals usually experience during this productive process, and then at the point of death they will feel nothing, so all we have done is shorten their lifespan, we have still done something wrong, because we've considered our own taste sensations over their lives. Look at it like this. I've birthed an entire population of slaves to die for me just so I can have a sandwich, man, and not even a good sandwich. You can get better sandwiches that are vegan. I know people will not agree, but even if you don't agree, even if you don't like most vegan meats and vegan alternatives, I don't even care. I don't even care. The reality is that animal could have went to live to continue living, to live a good life. It's almost worse if the animal was living a good life, because now you're shortening a good life. It doesn't necessarily humane killing means nothing. It's if someone was to stab me in me sleep, I mightn't feel anything, but I care about it. It makes a difference. It's not about respecting just the pain and suffering and well-being of an animal who is experiencing life moment by moment. It's the consideration of all of those moments. And a good way to look at this is in terms of a narrative. Humans don't think in moments, they think in narratives. Would that make you more inclined to eat meat?
I think that you sort of get into the fundamentals of is it humane to kill something? I have to understand and respect and honor that in indigenous culture.
I hate that shit. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have to. I can understand it, and that's it. That's all I have to do. I don't have to respect it. I don't have to respect. I can say that. Look, at the end of the day, I think that, let's say certain. I think is it Saudi Arabia where there's still some of the punishments are unbelievably brutal for theft. Is it cut your hands off? It's the certain. I can't remember where it is where they still cut your hands off for theft. No, man, that's wrong. I don't care if it's cultural. No, you shouldn't be cutting people's hands off for stealing food to eat or something. This is just disgusting. The reality of this, or FGM, or or other or like what about ethnic cleansing and stuff? I mean, Jesus, like there are certain cultures that think they are like superior to their neighbors. Like I mean, Israel's a really great example in the way that it treats Palestine. But also, I mean, what happened in, like, I was talking to someone from the Balkans not long ago, and some of the mentalities of the people that he was saying there are culturally pretty vicious and hostile to one another. It doesn't justify anything of the kind of harming people for no good reason.
You know, there's many reasons why people hunt. We would all be remiss if we didn't admit that, you know, at a time in human history, like, we needed animal protein and animal meat to survive. But today, it's not necessarily a necessity.
It's not a necessity at all. I mean, we can genuinely go and consume other products, like, no problem. Actually, quite the opposite. It's a luxury. Animal products throughout history have been a luxury, man. If we look at, like, take the language that we speak, that I'm speaking here. So the word cow is the English language for the animal that is a cow, right? You know, it essentially, it's what we would all use to refer to the animal. But if I was to refer to the meat from that animal, I'll use the word beef. Now, that's because the French call cows boeuf. So beef comes from boeuf. So in the English language, the word beef is derived from the French, and the word cow is derived from Saxon, Germanic languages. Now, why is that? And it's because back in 1066, William the Conqueror and the aristocrats invaded Britain. Conquering Britain, they would, you know, live like aristocrats, and they would speak French because that's what the Normans spoke. So the Normans speaking French would refer to boeuf, to beef, and the people in the fields would refer to cows, because people in the fields couldn't afford to eat the animals they were raising. The people eating the animals were the lords and the aristocrats, not the people working the fields, not the people producing the animals. It has been a privilege to eat animals throughout all of human history, and the only reason that it's accessible for people to even eat, even eat a turkey on Christmas, by the way, where this came from, was Bernard Matthews and intensive farming. People before this point could not even access animal products en masse. It was a privilege. It just has been.
I was being taught ethical hunting by an ethical hunter. And again, I think that's a harder concept here, because trust me, like, they're asshole hunters. But that's what I saw conservation, and I saw ethical hunting, and I saw why we do it, and I saw the food. You know, I haven't bought beef, I mean, in 6-7 years.
Can I ask you?
She hasn't bought beef in 6-7 years. I wonder if she buys chicken.
A question that I'm kind of scared to ask.
And we'll see.
So you said that you're a mother, and if you think of like Bambi, do you ever consider the...
Oh, why would you bring up Bambi? Why don't you just say, why don't you think of all the dairy cows that are being forcefully impregnated, having their calves ripped from them, and they've all got a maternal instinct, and we'll have footage of them chasing like their calves that are being like sent to slaughter, or because like they're not profitable because they're males, or they're going to be raised as dairy cows and they would consume the milk of the mother, and they can't have them do that because we want to consume the milk. Like, it's absolutely sick. If you want to talk about maternal instincts and like what it means to be a mother, why don't we talk about what it means to rip a child or an infant animal away from its mother when it has an instinctual interest in that being's survival. We have videos of cows mourning, for God's sake. That's how bad this is, man.
Small baby animals.
Dude, I'm excited. Come on, when are they gonna hit the fucking name the trait, dude? I want them to fucking be as like bloodthirsty as they are in any given.
They're never gonna put vegans like that on. Like, they're never gonna allow vegans to come on that are gonna be like full on, like, nah, you're absolutely wrong.
Even internet debate. Like, I love vegans when they're fucking rowdy as shit, dude. I want to hear the arguments. Like, how can you justify murdering Bambi?
Writing's not that.
Yeah, man. Like, I think that like they always put like or at least I don't know. Maybe it's just vegans when they get on TV and stuff. Or maybe it's just the only vegans they'll let on TV. They're always like apologetic. I understand it's part of your culture. I understand that it's your lifestyle choice. Or it's like, no, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, not at all. Like, Like, let's be entirely honest. It doesn't make sense. My lifestyle is absolutely incompatible with your lifestyle. My philosophy and my way of life is incompatible with your way of life. I'm going to make an argument that this way of life is better, and you can make an argument about your way of life, and let everyone decide how they ought to live.
From them?
Okay. So Bambi doesn't exist. Right. That's a Disney movie. If a mom is
I hate that so much. Like that, like, you know, like that's how you set up yourself to just look like an absolute idiot, though, isn't it? Like, well, Bambi doesn't exist. Next time, I can't wait to tell Meaty does that the circle of life doesn't exist and not engage with them in good faith at all. Like, don't worry. Like, the circle of life doesn't exist. It was just in a Disney movie.
is there with her yearlings, you would never kill that mom, right? You wait until she kicks them out of the house.
And that's part of like ethical.
Oh wow, that's like, oh, so you wait until you know she hasn't got hasn't got the children, and then you execute her, because all of our worth is in relation to that child. Don't worry about it, man. And it's like, oh well, what if you didn't see the children? What if the children accident? Like, it's like, I don't even care. Genuinely, like, I don't even understand why I'm supposed to like this idea, like, oh, but we're conservationists, so we wouldn't do that. And it's like, one, hunters, as you said before, can be absolute arseholes. Like, it's not to say like all hunters are, but some hunters will be. They won't care. Like, let's be honest, like, these are the same people that are murdering things for fun. I genuinely do not put a lot of like stock in that ethical capacities to follow, you know, conservation guidelines. Like they're shooting shit for fun. Let's be quite honest. They're not going out there to feed their family because they have no alternative. We know that's BS. We know that like they could eat a plant-based diet. They could even grow their own food. None of them have chosen gardening as a way of you know, trying to reduce their unethical food consumption. They've all chose hunting for a reason, because it's part of that like bravado, like BS, like their egos. So like this idea that it's I'm supposed to rely on them making the right decisions is just non-existent. Like, and why are we even putting this in the hands of average everyday idiots? Let's be honest. Like, I don't trust average everyday idiots to like go and make like massive ethical decisions. Like, all right, so guys, like, we're gonna decide who lives and who dies today, and I've decided to bring, you know, Bucktooth Johnny with a shotgun, and he doesn't do anything but kill stuff all day. He hangs chickens from his from a fishing line. And he doesn't care about anyone but himself. But let's go. You know, yeah. Like, I mean, that's a bit of a stereotype, but but like the reality of the situation is, I don't think that any of these people should be making life or death decisions. I think it's human hubris to be making these life or death decisions. And if they did need to be made, then we'd be like, maybe planning this out, executing it in a way that was as humane and considerate as possible. But no, the way we're doing it is just so happens to coincide with a sport, and a perverse blood sport at that.
Hunting.
That is like, yeah, no one really, like, you wait until the babies are kicked out.
Yeah, I get it. I know jury duty has to do with that. I mean, like, that's because we're an anthropocentric culture. Most people actually care about other humans. Most people, not especially hunters, aren't going around thinking the reason I'm doing this is because I care about animals so much.
I learned from my Tlingit cousins. They're from the southeastern Alaska. They're the ones that invented the fish hook. It was so wide that only a full-grown halibut could get caught. It's a generational thought. You're not just thinking about, oh, I need food tonight. You're like, how do I make sure I protect their natural?
How do I make sure that I don't deplete my own food supply so that I don't starve?
Natural.
That would be, I would imagine, the indigenous mindset where these cultures, let's be honest, right? None of them are anthropocentric. Like most like cultures throughout human history, I mean, they're all anthropocentric rather. Most cultures throughout human history haven't even been anthropocentric. They've been tribalistic. So like you had like indigenous cultures murdering each other all over the place. You've had cultures, humans today still murder each other, like all over the place, in nationalist mindsets, in religious mindsets, in whatever dogmatism and ideology they want, right? So like it's just Like, nah. Like, the reality of the situation is that it's not about it's probably been done to benefit the individuals who are fishing, rather than like, all right, well, we don't want to hurt the baby fish. And it's like, no, man. Like, look, like, even culturally today, like, people eat lamb all the time. That's just baby animals. Actually, almost all the animals we eat are babies. Like, it's like, I think a cow's about 5 years old, right? Cows don't live for 5 years. Cows live for like 20 to 25 years. So we're like quarter in their lifespan. Chickens get like 3 years. They live like 15 years. I think it is. I think it's at 9. It might be 12 to 15 years. I think. I'm gonna have to double check that one. Sheep as well. They live like much shorter lives. Every single animal that you're eating is a baby, really, or an adolescent. They're not full. They're fully grown, but they're not. They've lived only a very small fraction of their life.
Processes. When fish hooks are made now, anything can go out. So many of our pre-colonial traditions were staying in balance with animals.
Like, I hate this like balance thing as well, actually. And like, obviously I do think that it's ironic to judge your culture by pre-colonial standards, because it's like saying like my culture can only exist in this pre-colonial era. And it's like, look, either your culture is your own and it still exists, which means that you could go vegan and you could go like, actually, I think our ancestors were wrong. Like, British culture is mine, right? It's mine. It's Laura's. It's everyone in this area. We own this culture. Like, this culture is what we do. It's what we decide to be right. And it's how we decide to live our lives and express our traditions, what traditions we accept and what traditions we dismiss. In terms of indigenous cultures, if they were to use the standard, what did we used to do as the metric from how we should live our lives, then they are being determined as through bad, like, they are essentially a bad faith reaction to colonialism. They are being absolutely controlled by colonial actions. You want to be free from colonial racist behaviors, take your culture and do what you think is right with it. Like, and ask yourself rationally, do you think it's right to kill things when I don't need to? Do you think it's right to cause suffering when I don't need to? These are the kind of argument, like the questions you've got to ask yourself. And if you come to the point of going, well, actually, I don't think that this is justified. Well, change your culture, man. Like, change your norms and your conventions to match that progression. If your culture can't progress, you don't own it. If you can't reject your culture, you don't own it. So it's either yours and you have the capacity to change it, or it's not yours and the colonialism actually did destroy your cultural identity, and all you're doing is mimicking a historical concept.
And we had so many practices that prevented overhunting, and the people who are living off the land, who are fighting for the land, are getting last priority. We're not allowed to fish if there's commercial fishing.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I don't know about any of that. I think we should just ban them all. And I do have sympathy that there's probably racism and corporate interests that are taking precedence over, indigenous, indigenous communities and their rights, which is wrong. Like, the reason I'm saying this, it's got nothing to do with them being indigenous. It has everything to do with the animal. I don't care who's trying to kill the animal. The point is they're trying to kill the animal. What I'm looking from is the perspective of the victim. And the victim, in terms of when someone's being killed and someone is doing the killing, the victim is the person being killed. I mean, unless it's in self-defense or something like that. But for most of the point, if it's, unnecessary killing and someone's being killed, they're the victim of the circumstance, not the individual who is doing the killing.
We're constantly being watched and fined. It's constantly having land taken away.
Can we just appreciate this guy's face is just not moved? Like, I understand. I think it's horrible. Like, I genuinely think the land taken away and stuff is horrible. But when people try to use their own suffering to perpetuate the suffering of another, like, it's not okay. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sympathetic. I understand emotionally it must be very difficult to face that kind of prejudice. I can't experience it myself. I think that it would do something to you to know that, your ancestors faced a level of prejudice that is somewhat unheard of. I mean, the genocide that faced, for example, the Native Americans was just insane. It's beyond what people realize. Like, smallpox laced blankets and other ways of like murdering them in awful ways. And that's without even talking about the war, the mass killings, awful. And also cultural elimination, like trying to indoctrinate that, like taking the children away, making them Christians and stuff. And it's awful. But all of that doesn't justify causing harm to another individual. It's like the Holocaust. Don't get me wrong. I think it was absolutely awful, like genuinely, truly, what happened to individuals in Europe, during the 1940s. It goes beyond words. The horror and the atrocity that occurred there. If we look at what's happening in Palestine, and we were to try and justify what's happening in Palestine with the Holocaust, we would see that as wrong. It's the same thing with this and indigenous hunting. The reality of the situation is what happened to indigenous hunters, indigenous populations was absolutely unethical. It was wrong. It shouldn't have happened, and we can all agree that it should never happen again. And the way that they're being treated still is unacceptable from what I've seen. That doesn't mean that they're allowed to treat others without equality. Like, this is all about equality. The consideration of others as an end in themselves, treating an individual as not a means to an end, not a way to satisfy our own desires, but as having their own desires, their own interests, their own well-being that we respect. And so to perpetuate that value, we need to consider everyone involved. And, in this scenario, animals, or in every scenario, animals are conscious sentient creatures. They feel pain and pleasure like you and me. They have lives which they value inherently through just experiencing. And their narratives, their life narratives, are valuable regardless of whether we treat them that way or not. So it's exactly the same thing with the indigenous populations. White people who are colonial, colonies who came over and oppressed native populations, indigenous populations, weren't considering the interests of those populations. They were considering their preferences. For example, in relation to the raw minerals that were on the land, or the farmlands, or whatever it may be that they were taken from them. Even if it's just cultural supremacy, they were considering their preferences over the interests of other individuals. And that led to a unfair, unjustifiable, alienating relationship. It alienated it alienated those individuals from an ethical relationship with the colonials. It created what is called the master-slave dynamic. And let's be entirely honest with you, it's unjustifiable, just as it would be unjustifiable for indigenous populations to perpetuate that harm upon others.
If you look at any community, it's constantly happening to them where they're told.
I can't. If a vegan was actually fucking spicy, right now they turn around and be like, "Oh wow, your land is being taken away by massive massive companies. Well, how about taking your life away?" Because
he knows where that's the issue. Hassan knows what I want to say. Nah, it's not that I don't care about the land being taken away, because I absolutely do. I absolutely care about the land being taken away. It's the fact that, like, look, doesn't mean you can take someone's life.
if someone wants to eat your children, like, come on, just say it, dude. I want to hear a vegan just go fucking buck wild like this.
I want to hear a vegan. I think that's the crack.
Vegans say shit like that to me all the time. Not really like hearing out whether or not there's like indigenous people in the audience or anything like that. Just considering what? Just curious. How do you morally justify eating meat? Delicious.
See, that's not morally justifying it though, is it? It's like if humans were delicious, would you eat them? Was it like Albert Fish who ate children? Which like sick serial killer ate children? I bet he thought they were delicious.
They're not allowed to do this or eat this. It's all connected. It's all a cycle.
All connected. It's all a cycle. Just as humans dying is all a cycle, which means that like human overpopulation, we can address that. We can just mass slaughter humans, and it's all acceptable because it's a cycle. It's a balance, and we're out of balance. Like, Thanos was right. We just need to snap fingers and just annihilate half the population for balance.
Veganism is a privileged way of living.
Don't you step forward, vegans. You're not allowed to step forward. No.
If you have a choice of where you get to get your food and
Oh, come on. That's like necessity over privilege, right? So we met. So like it's actually kind of a good point in some respects, right? So some people don't have access to like food in the same way as other people have access. Like it is a privilege to be able to go to the supermarket. It's a privilege to be able to access fresh food and vegetables. It's even a privilege that we have infrastructure now available to deliver fresh fruit and vegetables to like people's doors and stuff like that. Like actually before this video, right? Before I even clicked this video, this ad came on, right? It's like a thing called like Jiffy groceries, right? So you can like get in a Jiffy, get your food delivered in a Jiffy, right? Now, this is their website. Like this, fresh food delivered. It's got your fresh sourdough bread for $3.59, right? Your fresh strawberries, your beef lasagna. Let's be entirely honest with you, right? Like poor people, like if they're getting a beef lasagna, they're getting it from like Heron or some other discount store. It's frozen and it's like £1, right? Fresh strawberries, you having a laugh, mate? Like unless that punnet of strawberries is getting like hawked from like a bloody grocer for like a really like cheap price, like £1 a punnet, I'm buying it, man. Sourdough? You're talking about sourdough? That's just bread. That's really expensive bread. Like I get it. I know some people aren't going to be able to afford this. This is a privilege, right? But that's not what all veganism is, right? Like look, some people are dependent upon this sort of thing, right? Food banks, food handouts. They don't have the access to food. They don't have the ability to choose. They don't have the capacity to make decisions about that food. They are dependent upon other people's generosity and kindness just to survive. Like some people are absolutely desolate, homeless, hungry, have no capacity to feed themselves and make decisions. There's a famous saying, beggars can't be choosers, right? And that's because they don't have the means in a capitalist society to decide for themselves what they will and will not consume, because markets require currency and they don't have any. So what are they left with? Now, the reality of the situation is, if you are in this situation, you are still vegan, right? People don't understand this a lot of the time, but if you are a vegan, you are vegan if you're still in this situation, because it's possible and practical, right? If you are homeless and hungry and you can't feed yourself, well, that's not possible and practicable, so you're still a vegan. So if you're a vegan and you're made homeless and you have to have a sausage roll from Greg's because that's all anyone will get you, well, that's what you get. So take, for example, if someone gives you like fast food or something like that, right? Like some pizza, some burgers, whatever the hell it is, like there's a McDonald's, they feed you. This is still vegan. None of this food all of this food might be animal products, but it's still vegan because you were not able to do anything other than consume that food. You did not have the choice. It wasn't possible or practicable for you to consume it. So you are still a vegan. It doesn't make you morally deficit. It's not an ethical deficit on your part. It's on the part of society and the culture. It's not managing to facilitate a system of drives which allows you to make active decisions and express your subjectivity in a way which is fair and reasonable. And I think we can all agree that people should be able to choose the food that they eat, at least to some degree, to the point in which they can, pick necessities, have the money to go and buy beans, legumes, and so on. Like, in terms of food and poverty, people are usually forced to consume this kind of food, like proper cheap junk food, especially if they're in like a food desert or something like that. But everything you're seeing here is vegan, right? Like you can get like vegan pink wafers, vegan fries, vegan Doritos, vegan Oreos, Biscoff, bourbons and stuff. But people like to perpetuate this myth that vegans only care, all that vegans can eat is like fresh fruit and vegetables, that it's super expensive, that, to be a vegan costs you $20 a day. I actually heard a vegan argue this. What's she called? Like Fully Raw Christina. She was saying that if she could eat $20 a day, for $20 a day, you could eat for $20 a day. Well, that's really disgusting considering there's a considerable amount of the population living under $1 a day or under $7 a day, which I think is the UN standard for life expectancy and for longevity and health, right? So there are a considerable amount of the population that are forced to consume this kind of food and forced to consume the cheapest foods available. But the cheapest foods available aren't animal products anyway, right? Like think about it like just in terms of shelf life. Like in terms of shelf life, you can have vegan foods, right, that last years, right? Like beans, right? Like legumes, like dried beans, tinned beans, like rice, like oats, dates, pasta, dried foods which are shelf stable. Meat, dairy, and eggs, not shelf stable usually. You have to powder it. You have to make it like, you have to dehydrate the hell out of it. And then that's just in like a minority of cases. The majority of homeless people, or people who are, you know, incapable of feeding themselves, or let's say people who are eating incredibly cheaply all around the world, are going to be consuming more of these kind of products, especially like pasta and stuff like that. And this has been historically the case. Like ancient Rome lived on 60% bread, like 60% wheat. The privilege that's associated with veganism is absolute bollocks. A great example is how many of the world's population are dependent upon the food that we feed to animals, like a lot of the food that we feed to animals. We don't realize it, but we feed cows, chickens, pigs, grains, legumes, and cereals, all of which could be fed to humans. But we don't feed them to humans. We feed them to animals so we can fatten them up so that we can slaughter them. And this is a very wasteful, inefficient process which privileges only a certain few individuals. Now, we would like to think, like, or at least many of our population like to think, that this isn't a privilege, that this is the standard. That as if everyone throughout history has had access to meat, dairy, and eggs, even though historical accounts show that it's always been associated with aristocracy. Or that, you know, if we look at the world today, people would get cheaper animal products, which require the same plant products that they could consume, being fed to the animal, who is being fed, not only fed, but being kept hot, kept in shelter. Kept in shelter, and fed water, and obviously requiring people to be employed, a considerable amount of labor being put in, all so that people could consume these animal products. This is the most inefficient way and most economically inefficient way to produce calories. The only reason that people think that meat, dairy, and eggs is cheap is because our governments subsidize the shit out of it. Like the British government puts billions into subsidies every year. We used to get billions from CAP, Common Agricultural Policy. That's the European Union. I think it was like 2.5 billion or something, maybe more. I actually don't have to double check. Every year, 60% of dairy farmers' profits in the UK come from subsidization. Subsidization for cereals, which are then fed to animals, is like up to 90%, I think, in some cases. Like the reality of the situation is that we are subsidizing the hell out of farmers for animal products, especially, so that they can be affordable to the consumer, right? And the worst part of this all is that these farming subsidies absolutely massively outpace other populations and their farmers. Like a poor farmer cannot compete with the in the developing world, cannot compete with the subsidies, with billions being put into subsidies in the USA and in the UK. We are literally destroying their economies, because what we do is we create an absolute surplus. This benefits massively the farmers, right? So they want to produce as much as possible. So they produce as much as possible, gain subsidization, end up with a massive surplus because there's no economic equilibrium. And so we export all of these products to these other countries, sell them, undercutting native farmers, and destroy their economy. That's the reality of the situation. We don't benefit. We're not helping the poor. We are destroying the poor. Like take for example, like what the poor eat in most countries anyway. They're eating like beans. Like the poor in most countries are eating beans, legumes, rice, like staple foods which are cheap and high calorie and pretty nutritious. They're actually, a lot of them have better health outcomes than us, even though they have 1/5 the funding. I think that's Latin America. I think Mexico, is Mexico? I have to double check. I think it has, I don't think it's Mexico. I have to double check. But I think Latin Americans, they typically have 5 times, I think it's when they move to the UK and they still eat not UK, the USA, but still eat their native diet, have 5 times, no, that's right. The countries that the move from have 5 times lower budget. They have like 1/5 the budget for healthcare, yet are living longer than the United States population. Right? Like that's the difference in the food they're eating. Because they're eating beans, legumes, lentils, rice. They're not eating animal products. They're not eating the same fast food and processed foods that they're eating primarily plant-based diets, or much larger amounts of plant-based diets. If you look at the diets, for example, in Okinawa, like 60% sweet potatoes, man. Like less than 1% of the diet come from animal products. Like the reality of the situation is animal products have only been a food throughout scarcity or a food for the rich. Like associating animal products, like vegan products with privilege is not only historically inaccurate, but it's an economic joke. Like you can't understand economics and associate one of the most inefficient products that humans have ever created with a scarcity mindset or being the most or economic like low privilege. Like it's nonsense.
Where it comes from,
why did the
and
hunter
even
not say
knowing
yes to
about
that?
it is a privilege.
To have the choice to be vegan, that includes, makeup and clothing and all of these things, and sustainable
Oh, wait a minute, I just realized that's not on. Hassan, where'd you go?
clothing, for example, is a top dollar.
Yeah.
If you're trying to buy it new, and thrifting is great, but some people don't even have access to that. And so
Wait a minute, has anyone seen the price of like non-vegan clothes a lot of the time? So someone just said, like, was it in the UK the poor are immigrants? What are you talking about? I'm poor and I'm not an immigrant. Like actually, like honestly, the poor are, there's a lot of poor immigrants in the UK, but also there are a lot of native poor people in Britain. Like seriously, like some of the most deprived areas in the north, for example. Check out Middlesbrough. Check out here. People like lucky to live on minimum wage. Like that's like no. Like don't get me wrong, I think immigrants get it like really harsh, especially if they're illegal immigrants. They get like absolutely exploited so badly, but that doesn't mean that they're the only poor people in the UK. But yeah, I don't know what you're saying here anyway. Like look, like okay, like fashion can be expensive, right? But like yeah, like you go to like thrift stores if you can't afford it. Like I get that. If you can't afford that, then you're dependent upon handouts. It doesn't matter what you get. And even from thrift shops or like charity shops or whatever, it doesn't matter what you're picking up because it's all vegan anyway, right? Like if you get secondhand leather, that's vegan. Secondhand leather isn't killing any cows. Secondhand leather is not causing any harm to anyone. It's just secondhand. It's not causing a demand for animal products that leads to the death and suffering of other animals. So there's nothing non-vegan about that. If you were requiring to, buy a wool jumper from a charity shop, you're still vegan, man. Like even there's nothing. Even if you can't afford to do otherwise, you are still vegan. And then in terms of fashion choices in general, like I don't know what like non-vegan clothes are even cheaper. Like wool, or maybe if it's heavily subsidized, like maybe then, but like no, not really. Like cheaper than acrylic alternatives. Like when have you ever went and picked up a jumper that says 100% acrylic and you're like, ooh, fancy, amazing. Like but you will see 100% wool, or you will see merino wool or leather or something like that being used as a status symbol in order to perpetuate like higher priced, better quality products. That's animal products in fashion are even more expensive because again, they're not very efficient. It's a lot cheaper to grow crops like cotton or like flax for linen than it is to produce animal products.
So I think that choice is a privilege and veganism is a choice.
I was
Again, if you have no choice, it's possible and practicable and you'd still be vegan.
born in Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and the fact that my parents were able to leave with me when I was just like 1 year old into the States, like really shaped how my life would go. The lifestyle that I'm living is such a stark contrast from the people down in the Caribbean.
100%. I think like the main staple in Haiti, is it rice? I think it's rice.
I feel like I have to talk about how veganism, especially in the States and especially in like the global West, has been totally co-opted by like, I'm just gonna say it, by whiteness. Veganism.
Whoa, what? Did he just say whiteness? Wait, did he just say that?
I have to talk about how veganism, especially in the States and especially in like the global West, has been totally co-opted by like, I'm just gonna say it, by whiteness.
I fucking hate that shit. Like, I don't know what people mean by whiteness anymore, because I see it brought up all over the place, and it usually just relates to privilege. Like, if you're privileged, then it's whiteness, like it's white. And it's like, one, not all white people are privileged, right? Like, there's people, especially in like the Eastern Bloc, who are, you know, paler than me, but dirt poor, like, have economies that are collapsing and struggling to survive. There've been people throughout all of human history, like, that have been exploited, taken advantage of, treated as a means to an end, faced oppression, who have been white. I mean, the Irish, for example, like, you know, even in populations in, to be honest, like in almost every major Western nation, white people have been oppressed in those as well. And there's like, if we take, for example, historical accounts of even things like slavery, there's been loads of accounts of like white slavery, and like the ancient, like the Spartans, for example, had a massive slave population. Obviously, this was a long time ago, and it's not comparable to the slavery that obviously happened at the Atlantic slave trade. But you know, there was slavery there. There's been exploitation. What I'm trying to really show is that there's been exploitation and poverty, and a lot of negative things happen to white people, and there still is. I mean, there's a lot of human trafficking. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of desperation that happens all over the world. Even in the UK, there are people who are suffering unnecessarily, not able to meet ends meet, whether it's because they're disabled, whether it's because they're, you know, because they're just simply, there's no jobs, they're unemployed. Perhaps they're being cut off from their benefits because of the way that our system likes to work, and it manipulates and discriminates against people who, for example, struggle to use the technology that we use today, or fail to meet the criteria that they would like to push on with. There's a lot that goes into the suffering and the privilege of certain individuals within society. And I think this is actually where I really like intersectionality, because intersectionality, really, if we look at the concept itself, it doesn't really allow for the perpetuation of really overly simplistic meta-narratives where you can associate something like whiteness with something like privilege, because we know we live in a capitalist state, and privilege is tied to economic supremacy, economic production, and we know that may coincide with something like historical racism and redlining in the United States, for example, but it can also coincide with classism, and for example, the exploitation of the working class in the northeast of England. There are, at one point in the area that I'm from, there was 70% unemployment. You know, people were starving to death up here. So the reality of the situation is, it's never necessarily been as clean cut. Whoa. Calm it down, son. There we go. So, like, to put it as simply as, like, in a meta-narrative that is, like, whiteness, I think, is really oversimplifying. And what I hate about this is saying that this has anything to do with veganism anyway. Let's be honest, right? Veganism is about animals. I think that this is, you know, it's typical like liberal dogmatism, right? Like, I'm white and I'm the oppressor. I'm so privileged. Well, no, you're not actually. There's nothing really that special about you, mate. Like, you're actually pretty bog standard. It's all a way to perpetuate their own identities as if they're better or on top of some sort of social hierarchy. I find it somewhat sickening, to be entirely honest with you. And then it's just this inconsideration as well for all of the actual victims who are experiencing their lives not only being taken from them, their children being taken from them, forceful impregnations, mutilation. It then becomes about their identity. Like, they're white. They're, oh my fucking God. Whoa. Ooh. You don't look like you've missed a meal in your life. Spicy. I did block the spammer. It's just too fast, man. Like, yeah, like there was a point when I didn't even have like, oh, by the way, and just in terms of like whether I've ever been poor, like, I didn't have hot water for the better part of a year. I've had to live with no electricity. I've had to do without food for weeks before having to rely on handouts. So no, you can fuck off. Like, you know. But yeah. Oh my fucking God. Like, is there a way to like put, wait, 1 second. I don't know how to do this, man. Right. Yeah, I've got to set up slow mode, man. Give us 2 seconds. 1 second, guys. I have a bot. That's the worst part. I don't know why the bot isn't even detecting that. So yeah, that's kind of weird. 1 second. Two seconds, guys. Sorry about this. Obviously, some people are just dicks. Okay. Right, I should probably sort it out. Okay, hopefully, and anyways. Nope. I mean, it gets them afterwards. Like, I think that's the best you could do. And now it just spams the chat as well. Like, okay, yeah. Don't worry about that. I'm like currently trying to stop people from spamming the chat. There's more important things. Don't worry. Yeah. My God. Is there a way to just like why? Why would they make it like someone spams the chat? So like what its way of protecting the chat is by spamming the chat. My God. Oh. Right. 1 second. Jesus. Right. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, fuck me, man. Honestly, fucking die in a car crash. Well, I hope that I hope they die in a car crash. I'm allowed to think that. Ugh. I think the thing is that why the bot isn't really working anymore. It's kind of annoying, right? It's gonna spam the chat, but I can't do anything about that. I don't think. Right. 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 1 second, guys. 1 second. I wonder where they've came from though. Like, I don't think you can put a timer on the chat, man. I've tried. Like, I did it. It was a faff, but I managed to do it. Right, there we go. Right, no more spam. Anyway, wow. I doubt that was like Hassan's fans. That was like weird, man. I think I did it. Thanks for turning up as well, vegan gays, and thank you as well. I know you were trying. What can you do, man? You're getting spammed by the haters, you know. Yeah, I managed to activate slow mode now. So, anyways, but anyway, so man, what the hell? We're just gonna take it from where we were. I don't know where I was. So
Veganism shouldn't be a privilege, in my opinion, but it is. Like the world that we live in now, it is.
They're hella reasonable.
I don't know enough.
nah, veganism isn't a privilege. I like to be entirely honest with you. It's a privilege to eat meat products, meat, dairy, and eggs. That's the crack. Like in terms of shelf life, in terms of how much resources have to be pumped into it, we could drop farming resources, like farmland use, by 70% if we swap to a vegan diet. That is the considerable. That's just land use, not water use as well. Like for example, Sao Paulo never had massive water shortages until we started producing incredible amounts of cows on the land not far from it.
About being a vegan. I think of it as like something that rich white people do, but I don't know. I don't know any vegans. I don't know how much money.
It's just so like I'm sorry, right? But there are poor black vegans like that exist. I know that there was like even organizations trying to help black people because we're saying that it was institutionally racist to put dairy products as recommended for them, because most of them are lactose intolerant. So they're saying like to be healthy, you're supposed to consume dairy products, yet most of them can't consume dairy products without having horrible side effects. Like the reality of the situation is it's just liberal dogmatism.
It costs.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yo, this mom is so Texas it hurts, dude. She's like, I don't know any vegans, dude. Oh, that's awesome. In a way, being vegan is a privilege, but my mom was vegan in Mexico when she was young.
People also from lower income backgrounds or areas, they also rely on fast food. Yeah. And
there's vegan fast food all the time. Like I've had to rely on fast food, like when I've been in like what would be considered like a food desert. Keck. Yeah, wrecked by slow mode, mate. Anyway, the yeah, like vegan fast food exists, vegan like vegan junk food, like accidentally vegan products all the time. Like I'm sorry, right? I didn't get this fat by eating like healthy food, man. I'm not eating tofu and oranges and vegetables and stuff. I'm eating like pot noodles and Doritos and yeah, I actually have like stupid cards like these. Like I got these cards because they were like ridiculous, right? Like French fries, man. Vegan. Crumpets. Vegan. Chicken fajita mix. Vegan. Skittles. Vegan. Like barbecue crisps. Cracker Jacks. Bristol gravy. Millions. Cadbury's. It's loads of shit.
That stuff is really cheap because, as far as I understand, the government subsidizes meat and animal products much more than it does vegetables.
When we think about someone who
100% the case. If you look at the subsidization for fresh fruits and vegetables versus the subsidization for animal products and the products being fed animal products, it is disgustingly low. Like the only reason people are able to afford animal products is because of the subsidization. That's the reality of the situation. People would not be able, it would not be economically viable to produce these products if they weren't so heavily subsidized.
has to work a low-wage job to survive. You also have to think they're probably working more than one job possibly. You want the easiest meals, you want the highest calorie meals because you're working and you're burning so many calories. So when you're saying, why don't you eat more plant-based, you're asking them to change their shopping habits, you're asking them to spend more time, you're asking them to educate themselves. And when you are working that hard, you have to numb yourself. You are eating to survive. That is different than choosing what you're eating.
Totally. And it's not fair to like ask any of those people in survival.
What the fuck is this, bro? This entire debate
Not too reasonable. I agree. I agree, Hassan.
is just like vegans being reasonable and agreeing with the hunters.
Oh, you actually like nah, man. Disagree the hell out of this. Like, I want like nah. Like honestly. No. Oh yeah, my mic was turned down a little. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I 100% disagree. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for letting us know. Vegan gays as well. Thank you. Yeah, but like honestly, like it's really bad. Like these people are just agreeing because they don't want to be seen as controversial. They don't want to be seen as like let's be honest. Vegans ought to be hated. Okay? Like it's our position in society to be hated. Let me give you an example. Anyone know of the Oedipus complex or the Electra complex in Freudian psychology? So the Oedipus complex arrives when a child for the first time realizes that a mother is not there for their own satisfaction, and that they are there for the satisfaction of other people than them, and that's supposed to be the father, the satisfaction of the father. The father has demands on the mother just the same as the child, and so the father's and the child's demands creates a complex where the child wants to kill the father. Okay, now Lacan turns this all into symbols and says that this isn't obviously so literal, but that it's right. Like, people hate people who limit the expression of their desires. They hate and loathe the people that tell them that they can't live in a way that they would prefer to live. And that's essentially what vegans are. We are the Oedipal fathers of society. We are going to be hated because we're there to tell you that your favorite food that contains animal products is unacceptable. We're there to tell you that leather jacket that you want to buy, well, you shouldn't buy it because you're going to have to skin someone for it. That's our position in society. We shouldn't look to be essentially popular or liked by anyone, because that's not what we're there to do. We're there to disagree with unethical decisions being made by the population. We're there to show the reality and the monstrosity of our culture to itself. We're the mirror. We are there to show the eyes of the animals who are being killed and the monstrosity of those individuals killing them to the people who are killing them. That's our position in society. And if you're looking to be popular as a vegan, well, then you've picked the wrong subculture, man. It's not about being popular. It's about doing the right thing and perpetuating a moral norm and a convention that is more ethical and grounded to our society, to facilitate that equality that has been perpetuated for thousands of years and progressed for thousands of years to its fullest extent, to consider all sentient creatures and all sensitive beings in our everyday actions.
This is not how vegans are on the internet, okay? Like, people are like, yeah, this is how vegans are. They're super reasonable, except like whenever the conversation starts, maybe it's because I nuked Discord recently, so like not a lot of them are chiming in right now in the chat. But like I don't know where Bow Bow is when you need him, but like, you know. I'm not hearing any of the usual vegan takes.
Survival mode to completely like shift their way of life and learn a whole new life.
I wish I could talk to Hassan. Hassan, talk to me. Hassan, please. I'll give you a spicy vegan takes.
And I definitely agree with that. I'm just curious, like, if we were all born like 3 centuries from now, the world has been globalized and like agriculture can reach every corner of the globe. How would that affect, if at all, your views or your choices?
Am I going to be judged?
I'm genuinely curious.
What the hell was that, man?
Yeah, I'm going to eat meat. I don't want to say there's no reason to not eat meat.
No reason to not eat meat. Well, that's, yeah, because you'd have to be dumb as hell to believe that.
But there's maybe no reason for me not to eat meat.
Yes, there is. It kills things that shouldn't be killed. It hurts people that shouldn't be hurt. Like, it perpetuates suffering and unethical actions upon billions of animals.
I get it.
I'm feeling judged.
They haven't called them Nazis yet. Like,
I'll call them Nazis. I think that the way that we perpetuate, 100%, the way that we perpetuate animal agriculture today is comparable to the way that the Holocaust was done, as it's a expression of human excess. The Nazis, in the way that they perpetuated their preferences over others, did so in a way that they mechanized and industrialized the slaughter of innocent individuals for their own twisted and perverse desires. Now, don't get me wrong, Nazis are certainly more perverse than meat eaters. There is no way that they didn't know the wrong that they were doing. Maybe those that were severely indoctrinated, but most of them knew that they were doing exactly, they were being sadists. They knew that they were harming humans who had value in and of themselves, and they did it anyway. Most meat eaters don't have that knowledge, so they're not Nazis in that same way. But the corporations, the mechanistic destruction of innocent creatures for the satisfaction of a few, of a privileged class of individuals, is 100% the same kind of prejudice, and it's the same kind of mechanistic murder that occurred in Nazi Germany. Is it as perverse and morally wrong? Probably not, in the sense that it has the same unethical outcomes, but in terms of people's duties and responsibilities, they do not know better. It's like ancient Christians aren't comparable, or actually Foucault that talks about that. Ancient Christians cannot be held accountable for the slaves that they had because they didn't know better. But ancient individuals, like ancient people in general, like populations in general, they didn't know that slavery was wrong in the way that we know it's wrong today. The ethical concepts that they use just aren't as developed. Today, we've developed to the point in which we can understand that the mechanistic murder of animals is wholeheartedly unjustified. Now, if in the future we develop a vegan ethic and it is, becomes culturally dominant, then the perpetuation of animal agriculture, despite that ethical knowledge, that would then be comparable to something that would be going on in Nazi Germany.
It's kind of weird. Come on, call the indigenous.
Hitler was supposed to be a vegetarian, but that was supposed to be like propaganda anyway. He ate meat, so apparently he ate like pigeon and stuff.
Indigenous lady a Nazi. What the fuck?
Also, you can't, like, just to dispel this, right? You can't be a vegan and be a Nazi. You can't be a vegan and like perpetuate harm upon other individuals for your own satisfaction. Whether it's the vegan society definition, which I think it's pretty spot on, right? If we look at like that, a philosophy and a way of living that seeks to exclude exploitation and cruelty, right? Like, you can't be like a Nazi and be against exploitation and cruelty. Like, it doesn't work. A vegan Nazi is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. It's a living contradiction. Like, the fact that some people do claim to be vegan Nazis, the reason that they claim to be vegan Nazis, what they mean is plant-based, and it's all about purity of blood. Like, it's twisted. It's weird. It has nothing to do with veganism. Veganism is a philosophy and a way of life that seeks to exclude suffering as far as possible and practicable to all animals. Right? Now, you can't do that and perpetuate a holocaust of humans or non-human animals.
Like, that's what I'm used to.
I'm not judging, but I don't understand. I'll be honest, I don't understand.
I mean, like, I still cry when I kill something. I mean, I love the animals, but...
And, I don't really care. Like, I don't care if you're an absolute psycho who, like, laughs when you kill stuff. Like, it still doesn't, like, I don't really care. Like, it's just moral sense. Like, I don't care if people feel guilt or not. I don't care if people romanticize and, like, have, like, like, the pray to, like, spirits and stuff like that, and that justifies it to them, or if the justify it by saying that it was, I don't know, like, the circle of life or something like that. I don't care how people try to justify it to themselves. I don't care if it's tearing them up inside. I don't really care about any of that. it's wrong, because from the perspective of the victim, who's the animal, it's unjustified. I'm not gonna sit there and say like, oh well, how did you feel while you murdered, that person? If we look at like, the Derek Chauvin case or whatever, the guy that killed George Floyd, he just got sentenced for 22 and a half years. Great, like he probably deserved longer. Like the reality of the situation is, I don't care how he felt. Like if he was just saying, I was having a bad day, I don't care. Like if he enjoyed it, I don't care. If it tore him up inside afterwards, if he felt horribly guilty, I don't care. You deserve punishment for this. Like that's the reality of the situation. Like right and wrong aren't dependent upon our states of being afterwards. You can't go, well, I felt really bad after I murdered someone, so it's okay to murder people, right? Like no, that's not how that works.
They're still just animals. Like it's.
See, that is the only time you hear people say legitimately how they think ideologically. They're just animals. That's all it's about. It's about their lower status, their lower ethical status. And that's the only way you can justify this behavior to yourself.
It's okay to eat one. Everyone's been eating meat forever.
That doesn't make it okay. Everyone had slaves forever. Everyone was raping and pillaging throughout history and committing acts of horrible barbarism. That doesn't make any of it okay. It's just nonsense. Like appeal to tradition it is the worst because it is so debunked. Like any philosophy that you read from the Enlightenment attacks tradition so hard, whether it's someone like Kant, whether it's someone like Hegel, or whether it's, even prior to this, it's like, imagine that you justified like the boiling of monks in Britain at the time of like the Reformation or whatever. Was it like the Reformation? Mary Queen of Scots and Elizabeth and Henry, putting monks in like boiling oil and stuff like that. Imagine just doing it. Well, they're just Catholics. Like, come on. It's not like we're boiling Protestants, or it's like, the other way around. Well, they're just Protestants. It's like, it's ideological nonsense.
That's true.
And
it's been
there's
a long
never
time
been
practice.
a culture ever that was 100% vegan.
Like, look, like there hasn't been a culture ever until this one that didn't have until contemporary societies that didn't have slavery. It doesn't mean imagine you're just sitting in trying to argue for slavery. Just like there has never been a culture that has succeeded without slaves. Imagine trying to be the person that makes that argument.
They have shifted. They're plant-based and Mediterranean and Buddhist, and they have moved towards a culture who was 100% vegan. I don't think has ever existed.
There's been cultures that have been incredibly vegan, like in terms of diet, like plant-based diets. Like, for example, I said Okinawa, it's 1%, less than 1% of their diets come from animal products. Like that, they don't need the animal products to survive. They don't really function at all as a dietary supplement even. They're there for celebrations and stuff like that. It's like fancy food. And that's because in their ideology, they're not thinking we're trying to look after animals. They're just eating the diet that they eat. And then on celebrations, they don't see animals as valuable, so they kill them. But there are diets. I mean, and then there's also the Adventist vegans, who are a vegan population who have some of the longest living some of the longest lives and lowest the lowest chronic illness rates of any population in the world. So yeah.
It sounds like it's a natural order kind of thing.
I don't know if Jainism, I think obviously Jainism, some of them actually consume dairy and stuff like that, I think. I don't know why. I think Rastafarian actually is probably the closest. I think that you Rastafarian.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think this would have been better if they didn't have hunters on. Especially if they didn't have the indigenous lady on too. Because then you could have seen vegans go buck.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that they should have had me debate Hasanabi on. Do you think Hasanabi would debate us?
Because the hunters are.
You think you'd ever debate someone on veganism? Come on, Hassan, you want a real vegan debate? I'll give you a real vegan debate.
Already
I think that you are perpetuating the torture and death of billions of animals, and that your lifestyle is wholeheartedly unethical and prejudicial.
These are hunters that
come on
care about conservation. Like, they should have just had like vegans versus like factory, factory farm eaters. Like, that would have been like a significantly better content focused approach. You know what I mean? Even someone like myself.
Why don't they just have someone that's like, maybe it's vegans that weren't willing to be just like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry for being vegan. I'm really sorry for being vegan. By the way, did I tell you I'm really sorry for being vegan? You can keep eating animals. I'm really sorry for who I am and for the lifestyle I made. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm really sorry. Like, come on. Like, that's all it is. Pretty sure Hassan doesn't do debates. Does he do discussions? like do the old Sam Cedar switcheroo. Just like, so I don't know. Like, just managed to Ethan from H3H3. Come on, call out Hassan for us. Nah. Like, so let's see what Hassan is.
He was like a fucking idiot. Even though I do recognize that, like, vegans are morally superior.
Like, it's not about being morally superior. It's about just progressing the ethics of our society to a standard which is acceptable. That's what it's about. It's not saying, like, I am better than you. I consumed meat, dairy, and eggs for the majority of my life. I've been vegan for 6 years now. I've not been vegan for my entire life. Like, the reality of the situation is that we aren't thinking that we're better than other people. We're trying to make people wake up to the harm that we're perpetuating as a culture, as a society, that we have once endorsed.
And I'm just too weak to not eat meat because it's delicious.
The thing is that, like, it's just the same with slavery. Could you imagine, like, these arguments, like, for slavery? Imagine trying to convince people that slavery is wrong, and then what you're met with, but, like, it's so convenient to have a slave. Like, imagine the convenience of a slave. Like, genuinely. Like, someone who does all of your housework. Someone who basically makes all of your money for you. And all you have to do is do whatever you want. And then occasionally, like, force them into line or break their spirit or something like that, which you might get sadistic pleasure from because you're a slave owner. Like that, like, let's be honest. Like, imagine trying to convince these people to give up the convenience of slavery. There is nothing more convenient than slavery. That's why there was massive like so many populations throughout history that have perpetuated slavery and crushed other individuals underneath them in order to satisfy their own preferences to their utmost. This is the ethics that is like the logical extension of what you're arguing for. Like, your preferences can justify, like, hatred, malice, the worst of humanity.
My entire extended family is vegan, and I'm shamed for it constantly. The argument is people who aren't vegan are because of a lack of effort, which is infuriating. I mean, it's true.
Interesting to hear, because I'm firmly of the belief that, like, we are animals. So for me, the natural order perspective doesn't hold a lot of water.
Do you guys have pets? Like, in other parts of the world.
Okay, come on.
What you would consider your pet.
He knows this is what we usually like. They're like, if I was to slit your pet's throat is usually our go-to. Not like, but I understand how your culture might perceive this.
Some people would eat.
But that's there. I mean, like, I don't eat my dog, and I hope none of you don't eat my dog. But that's, I can't worry about someone in China eating dogs.
Like, no, we're actually asking you to worry about whether you should be eating pigs, cows, chickens. That's, like, can you not see that it's actually a comparison, or are you just that ignorant to what he was actually saying, man? Like, can you be, like, any less self-aware, like, or less aware than if you're just, I can't really concern myself with what's going on in other cultures. We should definitely do that. Like, for example, like, there are numerous, like, every time Amnesty International pops up and they're like, we need to stop this ethnic cleansing, or we need to stop this, horrible bombing or something like that. I'm not like, can't really concern myself with other cultures. I know some poor woman was sentenced to 30 years in prison for trying to protest the hijab in Iran. But I really can't concern myself with other cultures. It's like, absolutely not. No, that's oppressive and wrong. Like, why wouldn't I concern myself with that? Like, what are you talking about? And the worst part is that it's not even what he's talking about. He's talking about your culture doing the same thing and how it's comparative. He's like, right, your dog, you care about that, right? Okay, people eat dogs in other countries. Now, your dog is very starkly similar to a cow, a chicken, or a pig. So, how do you justify that if you think that this is wrong? And he's just like, oh, I don't really care about other cultures. That they eat what they eat, and I eat what I eat, and it's like, oh my god, I hate that. Like, that's like liberalism, isn't it? At its height. This it's like this what is it, like the mentality of is it Robinson Crusoe, where he talks about how different another culture is and how we can't judge that cannibalism. It's like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm going to judge that cannibalism. Like like it's just like then again, like I wonder if how many people would be okay with that. Like, how many people would be like, oh, man, other cultures eat each other. How am I supposed to judge what they do? It's like this moral subjectivism, this moral like relativism, this cultural, socio-political relativism based on nothing. It's just, you'll sell your most precious ethical values down the road for what? A bacon sandwich? That's the usual hypocrisy that I find with a meat eater.
Like, we can all try to make the world a better place. And
it's interesting.
I don't know what you mean by a better place, because you seem to think that it doesn't matter from culture to culture what people are doing. We're trying to make the world a better place. No, that's exactly what vegans are doing. We are murdering 70 billion land animals a year and trillions of fish. Oh, well, I can't concern myself with that, but I'm trying to make the world a better place. I recycle.
No, because it does kind of challenge the natural order perspective. Like,
where do you draw the line?
Right.
Something to think about in this conversation too is
they're just animals. How about we cook your dog just an animal? Yeah, no, like I see that argument, but it's like I think most people fail to recognize that, like, one, we certainly associate like a higher value on like, most humans are species. Vegans are species too.
No, we're not. Like, we shouldn't be. Like, not speciesist. No.
Like, ultimately, if you ask vegans, like, would you rather eat a human on a fucking plane crash, in the aftermath of a plane crash, and that's the only way you can survive, or your dog? Most people will say their dog, right?
Nah, I'd eat the human, right? Like, I'd 100%, like, I'm not eating my dog. Like, I would feed the human to my dog. Sorry guys, like, just don't be on a plane crash with me and my dog. That's what I would recommend, because I will feed you to my dog. If I thought my dog was going to die and it's me and my dog or some random stranger, it's me and my dog. That's just the way that's going down. I'm really sorry. That's just personal preference, right? Ethics has come to a point in which it doesn't even matter anymore. One, we're probably all gonna die, and two, there's going to be someone killed in the end. It's either me dog, or you. So I'm making the decision here that it's not me or my dog. Like, that's just the way that's going down. Like, at the end of the day, like, in terms of higher moral value on certain animals, like, you can have duties anyway. You can express this in terms of duty. You could have the same value for, like, let's say, right, there was me, my girlfriend, and some random stranger on the plane. Now, I can kill the random stranger, or I can kill my girlfriend. Most people would see it as very strange if I chose my girlfriend and fed my girlfriend to the random stranger, because I have a higher moral obligation to my girlfriend. Does that make my girlfriend's life more valuable? No. She can have the same inherent value metaphysically as the other person. It just means my duty towards my girlfriend is not the same as my duty towards a random stranger. Ooh, what's this? Tofu. Oh, thank you. And see, that's why I would kill the other person, because they're not going to come back and cook his tofu. No, but seriously. Thank you. But seriously. Like, the reality of the situation is that, like, moral obligations are far more complex than just moral value. You can see that there's inherent moral value all around us, but that doesn't mean our moral obligations are just the same one-to-one relationship with that value. Like it's like understanding that my responsibility to, like, let's say my responsibility to a family member, or my responsibility to, you know, an institutional, like, let's say like if I was a doctor, my responsibility to my patients, versus someone who's not my patient, or someone who, you know, let's say, or like my responsibility to feed my family over somebody else's family. These things have one, like, you can even look at this in a purely consequentialist framework when you understand that norms and standards have utility, which can obviously increase the outcomes of society. If we all accept norms and standards and we actually engage in this behavior, then we can overall increase the positive outcome of society. So, like, we should engage in norms and standards and, you know, follow a rule-based structure. But I don't even take that approach. I think that obligations enlighten us to what our duties are. That we don't understand, we understand through reasons which inform us of our obligations, which point towards what is a better, which allows us to evaluate this universal, this abstract, ethical understanding of the consequences anyway. Like, my understanding of the consequences is formed through reason. Like, what do I think is a good or a bad consequence? I'm already making a judgment on that. And I'm using reasons to make that judgment, which are tied into my institutions, which are tied into my ways of thinking and my ways of life, which are reflected in, you know, this ethical relationship I have with other individuals and other animals and, you know, the whole of the world, to varying degrees. And by working through these structures, can I gain a greater overall insight and progress that ethic to a way that genuinely creates a better expression of subjectivity as a whole.
Right? So ultimately, at a certain point, everyone's a species. That shouldn't change someone. That extreme example should not change someone from, you know, prevent.
So you'd save a cat from a house fire than a baby, or at least not prefer the baby. I never said that. Like I could say that I have a greater responsibility to, like, a child than, and I would even prefer to save the child. Like, a random child, I'd be like, I have an emotional reaction when I see that baby. That doesn't mean the baby's worth more than the cat. It just means that I have an emotional reaction when I see the baby. I mean, I might also I would also have an emotional reaction for the cat as well, but I might have a greater overall emotional reaction for the baby, and I could argue that my responsibility might be greater for the baby. Now, if it come between saving my baby or somebody else's baby, I'm going to save my baby. If it come between saving, like, running into a house fire for, let's say, some random stranger versus running into a house fire for my dog, I'm probably going to run into the house fire for my dog first. That doesn't necessarily even mean that I have a greater responsibility to do that. It might just mean I'm more motivated to do it, like, and I might have an emotional reaction there. But also, I have a responsibility to my dog, and I don't necessarily have a responsibility to a random stranger, depending on, like, my engagement with them. I'd say I probably do, but maybe not the same as my dog, who I consider a member of the family. Like, that's essentially how I would engage in this discussion. What are our responsibilities and our obligations, and take it from there. We don't need to look at it as in terms of value. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, if some random intruder broke into my house and tried to kill my dog, I'm not going to risk, like, let's say I could lame, like, let's say I had a gun and I could shoot a lame and injure the person who's broken into my house, but they might be able to kill my dog. Or I can put a bullet in their head, kill them, and make sure my dog is safe. I'm putting a bullet in their head. That's just the way that's going down.
I think further harm happening to animals, so I do see the vegan argument. People who are saying humans are like fucking being ridiculous. So we're supposed to just ignore the unpaid labor of Hispanic and Latino farm workers, or is this chat full of fucking morons, including Hassan? Wait, what? Dude, what kind of fucking take is that? Like,
yeah, so if I could save a random adult or my dog from a house fire, I'd save my dog. Absolutely. Sorry about that. You can judge us. I don't really care. I'd also save my child. I'd save my girlfriend. I'd save my mother. I'd save, like, members of my family. before members of anyone else's family, even if it was multiple members of other people's families. So if I could save like 2 people from somebody else's family, but only 1 person from my family, I'm saving the 1 person from my family. I'm sorry, like that's just the way that's going down. Like, and it's not even an emotional response. Like in terms of my obligations, I would say that my obligations to my family are greater than my obligations to somebody else's family. It's just the way it works. Like in as a normative expression, but also as a means of recognizing the value within each other. Recognition in a family is higher, like the but also in terms of normativity, I think it increases. It is a better normative outcome if everyone lives up to responsibilities and duties anyway.
I literally I advocate to turn those unpaid or those migrant workers into fully naturalized U.S. citizens that have every right to advocate for their best interests and unionize and shit. Like, what the fuck?
Well, I think that the bullshit about this is, like, you're talking about agricultural workers and stuff being exploited, but why don't we talk about like the exploitation of slaughterhouse workers? So like slaughterhouse workers in both the UK, so the UK, 60% of slaughterhouse workers are actually non-UK nationals. They're from lower income places in the EU usually. It's the jobs that no one in the UK wants to do. There's 11,000 vacancies in the UK. No one wants to go and kill animals for money, even though the pay is pretty good. Like, no one is going to do that. Just kill animals day to day and day out, because it's psychologically distressing. Slaughterhouse workers. I actually have a video on slaughterhouse workers on how to develop it's called Working in Hell, because working in a slaughterhouse is hell. Slaughterhouse work perpetuates a psychological disorder called Pitt's disorder. Perpetration-induced traumatic stress leads to alcoholism, insomnia, drug abuse, and can actually massively affect the psyche of individuals to the point in which they're having dreams, paranoia, breaks from reality, feelings of disintegration. This is also tied into risk of zoonotic disease. Obviously, they're at higher risk of zoonotic disease, like things like bird flu, swine flu, horrible illnesses which can kill them and their families, which can have very high mortality rates, even if they're not so virulent, because the virulency of a disease doesn't have to be so virulent that it infects everyone in the population and becomes a pandemic. It just has to be virulent enough that if you're inhaling something like the spray, like blood splatter, like blood spray, or dealing with animal fluids, like if you're in a meatpacking plant or something like that, you can genuinely you can get like stuff that's got a mortality rate of like 60%. It's just not very virulent. Then there's the risk of lacerations, the high pressure environment, people having that accidentally slitting their own throats because they're wielding blades that are sharp enough to like slit throats. Really, that's the idea. And of animals with much stronger hides than us. Then on top of all of this, they have the pressure not to unionize, and they're judged by the majority of society for doing a job which most people require them to do, so that they can consume the products that they get wrapped in cellophane in a supermarket. Like, it's a disgusting, horrible profession that no one should ever have to do. It's a house of horrors, and when you buy meat, dairy, and eggs, you are requesting someone to take your place within it. That's the way it works. The worst part of it all is that it all overall damages their psyche to the point in which it damages their social relationships, their ability to engage in ethics in a normal way. We've seen that domestic violence rates, like report rates and arrest rates, are tied to the size of a slaughterhouse facility. You can actually map on a graph how much, it's twice. If you've got a slaughterhouse facility that has 7,500 people, you'll see twice the arrest rates of having no slaughterhouse in terms of domestic violence, atypically, of having domestic violence or violent crime arrest reports and arrest rates. Like, this is the kind of horrible shit that goes on, because people are so psychologically damaged from being made to kill stuff all day that it genuinely does not do good for them, especially since they talk about animals as if they understand them. They see animals as if they cry out in pain. They see animals, whimper and try to hide, and a lot of the time it produces individuals to become more sadistic, and this leads to essentially what's called psychological doubling, in which they alienate an aspect of their consciousness, their values, and the person that they thought they were, they thought they are, couldn't essentially deal with this working environment. They can't deal with committing these horrible acts, and so they create a new persona, a new personality, and they perpetuate those values. And so this leads to real psychological issues, like major psychological issues. And sometimes it's even worse than being the victim of trauma. That is how big of a deal it is. Like, you can end up in a worse psychological state being the perpetrator of violence than you can being the sufferer of violence. That's how bad it is. I would say your explaining of saving a baby is clearly holding the species in higher personal value. Would you be neutral between a puppy and a baby? Well, like, it's not about, like, look, like, I can have a greater, like a greater responsibility to, I can have a greater responsibility to other individuals than, within my community, within my nation, within my family, within my institutions than I do necessarily for individuals outside of that. I've already said that I would save my dog before saving a stranger. Now, what you're saying is just because I would save a baby, even though I would say that, like, look, an institutional benefit from this is obviously the consideration that a baby lives longer, that a baby can go on and save others, that a baby may, you know, in terms of consequences, may have higher overall value in terms of perpetuation of normative standards. And also, it creates a standard where my baby is more likely to be saved than some random baby. So I consider the fact that my child, and our children, overall, we wish them to be saved because they are value, and they are value greater to us than, let's say, some stranger's dog. We would say that, look, the stranger's dog should die because my baby has higher value, and that's in terms of respecting. We demand higher respect for our own subjectivity and the subjectivity of others within our family. And so this has a greater overall normative impact than just, well, if there's a baby and there's a puppy, and if you choose the puppy, you're speciesist against humans, and if you choose the baby, you're speciesist against, animals. Like, no, man, that's way too simplistic.
Also, are you stupid? You think agriculture production revolving around vegetables don't have that exact same kind of exploitation? Like, literally the exact same kind of exploitation? Are you
doesn't have the exploitation I just mentioned about slaughterhouse work, or does it?
Fucking stupid.
Veganism doesn't hurt the earth more. That is the dumbest. Like, not only is it, like, genuinely the stupidest thing, because 70% of farmland is essentially associated with animal agriculture, but also water consumption, deforestation, ocean plastic and dead zones, all associated with animal agriculture. Greenhouse gas emissions, it's like the second highest producer of greenhouse gas emissions. We could drop greenhouse gas emissions by 28%. Like, if the world went vegan, like, you've just got to have no ecological understanding that if you think that veganism is worse for the environment than eating meat, dairy, and eggs. Whoa.
Why did you just make up an argument in your head without even fully thinking about where my POV is on this matter? I'm glad you love the meat industry and all of its practices. This is totally a thing you said. Yeah, literally. I love big corporations only when they're murdering animals rapidly. I'm critical of factory. I'm not critical of factory farming. Sorry. I'm critical of giant corporations, except for factory farming, which I think is ethical, sustainable, and great. I famously say that all the time. I'm surprised that not a single person has done Name the Trait, though. They're being cowards. Do it.
Is knowing that even when we eat plants, there's so many people that we're exploiting.
Yes.
The core of this, I think, is just having that respect for your food.
I hate this whole, like, having respect for your food. I don't know what you mean. One, you're saying it's your food. You're not respecting it if you're saying it's your food, man, like it's actually another sentient creature with its own interests, and if you were to respect it, you'd consider those interests because it would be an end in itself and not a means to an end. But because it's like me trying to say like I really respect like carrots, like I just respect them so much. I don't know what that even means. What does it mean to respect a carrot? Like you can't offer ethical respect, at least in terms of the way that I would usually engage with the like understanding of respect to something which is a non-sentient creature. Like you're either respecting yourself, you're respecting some sort of abstract notion of right, you know, like God or something like that, some sort of spiritual belief, but you're not respecting, like you can't show respect for a carrot because a carrot has no interests of its own. So there's no way to respect it. It's an object. Now, if you treat animals in that same way, you're making a metaphysical error. You're genuinely considering them as objects rather than individuals. You're considering them as a means to an end rather than an end in themselves. You don't realize that they have their own conscious experience, which differentiates value in a way. Which demarcates value in a way which is different to yours, and that's what you need to respect if you are respecting an animal.
Fully agree with that. I think it's such a falsehood when vegans say cruelty-free. The avocados that
Yeah, man, like she respects that food in the same way that serial killers respect their victims. It's like, look, I think like Lord Voldemort from like Harry Potter, where he's like, I wouldn't have respected the woman if I didn't like use her information that she gave me. Like, you know, like it's like in like the Goblet of Fire when he kills that like what you called, like that Ministry of Magic lady. Like that's the reality of like the respect that we're talking about. It's like it has nothing to do with respect. He didn't give a shit. Like you go like, oh yeah, Voldemort really actually was just trying to respect her. He just thought that the only way that he could respect her was to essentially possess her, torture her, and yeah, like just destroy her in every way possible. And that was how he respected her. It's like the only way I could respect a cow was by slitting its throat. It's like, what kind of psycho?
that I eat, you know, were harvested by people that are being exploited. So
Do you guys?
And yeah, we can all disagree with that exploitation. Like I'm a socialist, man. Like I think that exploitation is wholeheartedly wrong. We should not be perpetuating the exploitation that happens in capitalism today, and that has been going on for thousands of years from these unfair relationships and these unequal relationships that certain classes and certain individuals have with others. That's exactly why I'm vegan as well.
Consider hunting a privilege?
Isn't everything a privilege to a point, right?
I mean, hunting is like probably one of the biggest privileges though, because it could not sustain the world's population. Like it's not universalizable, like not at all, not even nearly. Veganism actually is universalizable. We can feed the world's population a vegan diet in a way that would cut down not only greenhouse gas emissions and be more ecologically friendly, but in a way that would be producing far more calories than if we feed them meat, dairy, and eggs. We can feed, I think 12 billion people with a vegan diet with the amount of farmland that we have today.
A lot of people are going literally in their backyard, shooting something, processing it in their house, and putting it right on the table for their family. Like,
or you could just go into your back garden and, you know, grow some fucking potatoes, man. Get way more calories from it and put it on the table for your family. Like, I hate this, like, this idea that, like, it's somehow, like what poor people do. I'm sorry, but, like, poor people, like, usually, I'm sorry, like, maybe hunter-gatherer societies, like, but then most of the food that they were getting was from gathering anyway, because berries don't run away.
that to me is beautiful. Hunting can be really expensive. You basically have to have a huge ranch, or you have to spend a ton of money to hunt on someone else's ranch. And then I think what a lot of people see are, right, the trophy hunter.
And growing takes land. I understand that. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that everyone should be growing their own veg. Although, I know that Tomato, who's in the chat all the time, talks about how the most efficient space to grow food is actually like a small urban area. It's like the most, thank you. It's like the most like efficient space. Like we look at growing our own food in a very like dogmatic way, and it's a lot easier than going out hunting, and it's a lot less time consuming and overall, and a lot more reliable and sustainable. So and like this isn't even considering like all the damage that humans do by just entering the woods, like footpath erosion and all that nasty stuff. So like spuds on their own don't have much nutrition though. Yeah, they do. They have like loads of nutrition. I mean, if you look at it, like they're a lot more than like genuinely like the meat that you would get from hunting an animal. Like take potatoes, like massively high in vitamin C. They've got like, you've got people that have lived purely off potatoes for a year. You've got whole populations that are some of the healthiest populations living off, like the Okinawans living off sweet potatoes. 60% of their diet is sweet potatoes. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like you should just live off potatoes. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is that if you are dirt poor and you needed a way to sustain yourself because you couldn't go shopping and you had to find a way to supplement your diet, growing food would be a lot more sustainable, a lot more reliable than hunting anyway.
Hunters and the going over to Africa and hunting. I have not done that yet. That does not mean that I am not for it or
Berries don't run away, or my food doesn't run away would make great t-shirts. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
against it. I do know that tourism in Africa is a huge moneymaker for them. I mean, those villages are really poor, and having an entire animal and multiple animals that hunters give them it's big for them.
I'm sorry, right? But like one, if we look at, like, take for example, like, you know, that horrible stuff I was talking about with slaughterhouse work. Yeah, that's nothing compared to the slaughterhouses in Kenya. My God, the zoonotic disease risk in Kenya, unbelievably high. Like risk of like and then obviously you've also got like feed animals. Not all animals, like not everyone has the land to even allow like animals like ruminants to graze enough to be purely like fed by themselves, so they've actually got to supplement their diets. Like, don't get me wrong, like it might be beneficial for those like towns and like very, very, very poor nations. I don't think that we should judge our standards of like how we should engage with food by the standards of the poorest and the most desperate. And not only that, we should look to help those individuals in a way which doesn't harm animals. Rather than give them, for example, a cow, why don't we think about giving them a means to grow their own food? Like, it just seems that it's all too convenient to say, like, look, hunters are so nice. They give animals to these poor farmers, and it's like, or poor villagers. It's like, man, like, we produce so many more calories than we necessarily need. Now, I'm not saying that we can just, like, I get it. Economically, it's more complex. There's the logistics, and I get that there's the damage to their own agricultural businesses. But man, we could start subsidizing their farmers if we wanted to. Like we are acting in such a way that is just so monodynamic, where we look at like hunting as like the only solution, or we'll look at like animal agriculture as the only solution, and we're trying to perpetuate as some, like, you know, farming in ways which is far less efficient than farming plant products. And for what? Like, I mean, like, GMO plants is a really great example. Like, I will actually say GMO plants is essentially a great way to help out like lower income places in the world where it's really hard to grow certain like plants, because GMO plants are way more hardy. They're capable of sustaining themselves on either like with less nutrition or from pests, and they're just essentially the plants that we've made more capable of producing higher crop values. Like they're just like come on, man. Like there are ways around this.
My question with that would just be, why would it have to be?
You guys are throwing up question marks, but like animal conservation that revolves around hunting like an older fucking rhino that is significantly damaging to the existing rhino population. And this is a very common argument from hunters, but is actually good to just like sell off to fucking some rich white person overseas, so that the rest of those finances, the rest of those profits can go back to like literally conservation efforts and also stimulate the local economy.
And the thing is, it's not really, it's like throwing like some money into the local economy, unless it's invested, isn't going to do very much anyway. But like the I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it might increase, like, allow people to feed themselves and so on like that, which we need, like, obviously. But, like, in terms of charity, like, I'm sorry, like, we shouldn't have to murder an animal for charity to occur. And in terms of conservation, if you genuinely cared about conservation, should be willing to help out without having to murder something. Like, it just seems that, like, look, unless we abide by the desires of the wealthy, then we're not really going to be able to have a better outcome. It's, like, unbelievably utilitarian. It's like, let's say my grandmother, she's getting on, man. I could get some serial killer who's rich as hell, kill her, and look, we'll be able to, like, sustain our families and stuff, like, way better if, like, she dies. Like, they all harvest her organs or whatever, and we reap the rewards. Let's say, like, we're in a dire strait. Should I let that happen? Like, come on, like, what's the justification here?
That's what she's talking about. I love hunting extinct white rhinos. No, don't. No, there's obviously an other side of that as well.
I just don't understand why we care more about white rhinos because they're white. Is that not racism? No, it's just aestheticism. Like, I don't care if a rhino's white or gray. It's like, I don't care if a squirrel is red or gray. Yet people will kill gray squirrels to help red squirrels. I don't care. It's just aesthetics.
It's a real argument, though. It is a real argument.
Yeah, I know GMO doesn't self-seed, but the person was arguing that in areas from which normal crops would be not be able to sustain themselves, that we could give them GMO crops. But the reason that this doesn't happen is because they're patented, genetically modified products. And so even though there are areas in the world that would be able to grow food and supply it to their populations, they don't have access to that food because they can't buy the seeds. Even if they don't pollinate, even if they don't reproduce, they can't even, if they were cheap enough, they could buy the seeds on a bi-yearly basis, and we could even subsidize their capacity to buy the seeds, but we don't because they are patented and highly expensive by certain corporations. I read a pack of peppers the other day that said that, like, these are copyrighted peppers, like trademark peppers, and they'll sue people for trying to take that pepper from them. It's like madness.
From what I understand, that's 100% not fucking true. The other side of that, of course, is that still, like, most of the time it's not like a fucking animal that is damaging to the rest of the pack. Why was it bad that the Twitter lady put her dog down? Because she didn't want to take care of it, says Bow Bow. I was waiting for a Bow Bow take, dude. Thank you. Hit me with that spice.
I'm completely right. Like, those people that, like, put that, I think that's completely right. Like, people put their dogs down. People kill their horses. There's loads of stuff like that.
Hit me with that fucking spice, baby. Because I'm a speciesist. And I think that we've already domesticated dogs to a level that they literally cannot survive without us. So now that we fucked up, we got to take care of them.
Why do I have to take care of them? Because if you're a speciesist, if we fucked up, like, we fucked up and doing loads of shit, like, doesn't justify it, man. Like unless they have ethical value in themselves, like, why do you care about dogs suffering? Like, because they can't feed themselves.
And they're chill. Dogs are fucking chill, dude. They're, like, literally bred specifically for humans to...
Clearly not talking about my dog anytime someone knocks on any door in my street.
To cuddle with and take on walks and, clean up the poop behind.
Does anyone else think that also, like, the way that we approach, like, cleaning up shit, like, from dogs is kind of weird? Like, we pick up poo, with plastic bags, man. So we pick up something like biodegradable with, like, perhaps, like, the worst, like, the worst environment, like, the most environmentally unfriendly product I can think of.
Neither are cows or chickens. I think if more people had chickens as pets, more people had cows as pets, they probably would feel, they would probably start feeling the same exact way that they do about animals too.
I completely agree. I think that's the way that works.
Oh.
I do need to put like I should probably just get like, what is it, like YouTube Premium or something.
And I agree on the cat take that they're devastating to the wildlife population, or they're devastating to the ecosystems which they exist in. They're fucking horrible. Yeah, they will fuck up every bird, dude. They are.
Yeah, cats. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love cats. I think they're lovely. Like, I genuinely care about them, and I do think that we have an obligation to them because the matter, and we're the ones that perpetuated that population. We should just lower our population because of like through breeding, by preventing them from breeding rather. But yeah, like they are terrible for killing birds and other native species. What else? They're also, to be entirely honest with you, like, if you can't feed a cat vegan as well, I see that as, you don't rescue a cat. Like, if you have cats and you couldn't feed a cat vegan, then I don't think you are wrong for continuing to feed that cat food. But if you plan on rescuing a cat in order to feed it animals, then you are basically demanding other animals die so that you can rescue that cat. And since you don't have an obligation of that cat greater than an obligation of those animals you're going to kill, I see that as just wholeheartedly wrong. But you can get vegan cat food now, which is apparently straight up fine for them. So,
mass murderer. They're genocidal freaks.
Be a tourist, it kind of just sounds like the white savior complex narrative.
Because we're willing to pay a shitload of money.
I remember reading a statistic about like a single elephant in its lifetime can garner over $1 million just from photographic tourism. One single elephant's ivory is about $21,000. So just that.
Oh, that was pretty sick. That was a pretty, okay. I didn't like the guy until that. That was like one base take. That was really cool. I like that. Like the overall value to the economy is much greater for tourism. That's a really great point. I never thought of it like that.
Itself.
See, she's talking about hunting for conservation. He's talking.
Not well. Like, come on. Like, it was moments ago, Hassan, that we were talking about like rhinos and shit. And you're like, well, what if someone like sells off a rhino? And now he's like, they're talking about different things. No, they weren't.
Talking about something that is like super duper fucking illegal. Like, so they're on like the extreme side of either argument, where like hunting for conservation oftentimes isn't like the common.
Look, you can do other things for conservation, like gene drives, or an upcoming way that we could genuinely, I think that'll be the best way that we can deal with overpopulated animals. Release a virus which causes animals to go infertile, certain animals to go infertile. We're talking about doing it with mosquitoes in areas with high levels of cholera. There's a lot in this. You can even it genuinely I think just a much greater way of dealing with overpopulation of animals than rather having people going out and hunting them. It's just a bad way of looking at things. And this isn't even talking about catch and release
thing that happens, but it could be a good thing. He's talking about fucking poaching. Like that is like incredibly illegal because of how much people poach and because of
it's incredibly illegal for like certain countries. For example, poaching over here, like if someone was to poach like a fox, it's not like super illegal. It's only just been made illegal, and people still do it all of the time. Like the hunt sabs that go out, like God bless the hunt sabs, man. They get battered by a bunch of posh twats who ride horses and look to shoot animals, and they're just going like sabotage their hunts. Like basically mess up their trails and stuff so they can't find like the animals that they've released and stuff like that. But they're only supposed to be like, riding along the trails and stuff. And then obviously they're battering the vegans who are sabotaging their hunts.
How devastating it is.
I don't know like how they can, like the thing is that like obviously they film a lot of it, but it can get really violent.
Like to me is evidence that like non-violent tourism, like
she said trophy hunting. Yes, trophy hunting for conservation. It's the real thing. white people are willing to pay like an insane amount of fucking money to go out and be able to like hunt like a fucking older dying fucking animal that is like threatening the rest of the pack with aggressive behavior.
Like, I just think that it's kind of fucked up that we'll be like, oh well, this animal's like, dying, it's getting old, well, we're just going to sell it off. I just think that's such a utilitarian mindset. Like, its value is only based around the the value of the collective, and it's like, well, what's the value of the collective if it's not the value of the individual? It's so abstract and ungrounded. It's so like just perverse, like this idea that we can have value. It's like, it's exactly the same thing that happens in something like communism, right? Like that happened in like the USSR. People are being exploited to hell, but it's okay because it's for like the fatherland, right? Like, no man, that's not how it works. Like, if the value of the state is not the expression of the freedom of the individual, I think Karl Marx even talked about it like that, then you've totally lost the fucking the concept of what communism was supposed to be about. And it's the same thing with any ethical situation. If the value of like the elephants or the rhinos or whatever isn't the individual rhinos, the elephants, the animals, then you're talking about something abstract and something ungrounded.
I'm giving you like an edge case. I'm certainly offering you like one potentially ethical form of hunting that like would be killed regardless for the sake of making sure that the rest of the group is still safe. You speak ill of cats, but you're easily the single greatest genocider of birds for the sake of sweet tendy. Oh, 100%.
That's actually it, though, isn't it? Like cats kill like pigeons and stuff, like, but because it's their natural instincts. But then you kill like hundreds of chickens. So 24 billion chickens killed a year, all having their own subjective experience, their own sensitive creatures. They're exploited. Some of them, like, they go through lives which are unbearable. Like for example, unable to even perform the most basic instincts, like opening their wings, just so that you can have like fleeting pleasure. It's just like fucking disgusting. But I hate that this guy thinks he's a fucking lefty. Like, imagine thinking that you're left wing when you actively argue against equality for your own preferences. Fucking ridiculous. If you aren't a vegan, you aren't a fucking socialist, man.
But by and large, like, the shit that you do see about trophy hunting is that they're fucking awful humans that go and like, they don't go and hunt like a, an older aggressive.
Did you start making that like, oh really? Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Elephant or some shit. It's like trying to murder young ones, whereas they go out and, they hunt, whatever. They do like trophy hunting.
I don't know why Hassan's so popular. I know he was like on the Young Turks before, like this sort of stuff, before going solo. I don't know what else like he does, to be entirely honest with you. Like he's yeah.
Former wildlife biologist here is the real thing, but the need for poached materials on the market and exploitation of the poor to poach these materials is the real problem, and trophy hunting contributes to this. Yeah, I mean, a form of that kind of conservation. Well, it's not for fucking conservation, but like deer and invasive species are routinely fucking murdered en masse in a lot of places in America to preserve the ecosystem.
But it's done in a way that does not necessarily need to be done. It's done in a way that does not consider the animal themselves. It's not necessary a lot of the time. There are other alternatives that we don't choose because they're more expensive and they require public investment into a genuine ethical issue, but because it can generate revenue rather than cost, states will take the hunting option before they'll start pumping public funds into it, yeah?
You have to fucking kill some invasive species, otherwise they overpopulate. And then they murder all the other...
I wish we could say this about humans. Because humans are like the most invasive fucking species on the planet, right? Like, look at like deforestation. I'm gonna just start like, we should just murder like loads of humans, because like deforestation would not occur if we didn't need so much land to feed individuals' animal products, right? Like, I don't know how you can even talk about conservation if you consume animal products. You've just got to be an idiot. Like, you've just got to have no concept of deforestation, ocean dead zones. I mean, shit, like, what, like, there's 5 times more by-kill from fishing than there is from, like, actually fish that are consumed. There's, like, ocean dead zones and nitrogen runoff from the amount of crops that we've got to produce. Like, from the pesticides, from the crops that we've got to produce to feed animals. Like, the 46% of ocean plastics is fishing nets, detached fishing nets. Like, it's the same sort of thing where it's like people will stop using plastic straws to save fish, but they won't stop eating fish to save fish. That's the kind of logic that I'm hearing right now. I hate this just virtue signaling, absolutely liberal, fucking brain dead take. Like, honestly, sorry to be a bit spicy, but come on, man.
All the other animals, like pig hunting in Texas with Ted Nugent.
Yeah, exactly. 10,000 species are extinguished every year because of us. So why can't we kill us? With Hassan's logic, I completely agree. It's like the Amazon rainforest. Like, deforestation in the Amazon is so much worse for biodiversity than like overpopulation of deer. Like, it's just not even comparable.
You need to get a goddamn motherfucking. You need a fully automatic M64, brother, that you fucking strap onto the side of your goddamn Chinook, so you can start ripping these fucking hogs 50 at a time, brother. How else are you gonna take them goddamn down? You just be hog hunting, brother. Yeet.
Trophy hunting tourism is just as lucrative, if not more lucrative, than trophy hunting.
Did I say M64? M60, sorry. I meant M60 with...
Haha, they're the vegans are like, hunting's only acceptable for food. You know what? Hunting's not acceptable unless it's for absolute fucking necessity. Like, as if you are starving to death. That is the only time hunting's acceptable. Or maybe if it was like for conservation, and there are absolutely no alternatives. Like, we've exhausted everything else, and now we are left with some animals are going to have to die, otherwise there are going to be way more deaths and much worse. Maybe then, but for food, like if it's just like you could go and get like a vegan product, a vegan alternative, like you go and get some, like, grow your own food or something like that, and you could do loads of alternatives, and yet you choose to hunt. Nah, it's not ethical. You're wrong.
Fucking Fortunate Son playing in the background as I fucking fly in.
That is a bass song.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeet. Need a goddamn bazooka. Need a goddamn bazooka for these fucking hogs, brother. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. I don't need no goddamn bazooka for this ad break segue, though, brother. Hell yeah. He's top of the fucking hour, boys. Top of the goddamn hour, boys. Time for a 60-second ad break, boys.
I know, I wish you would press play as well.
Boys, you already know what the deal is. Yeet. You know what?
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
The
god.
M60
still fucking
is a
going.
woman ad.
If Christ. I don't even know what my view.
Come on, Britt. I had to review.
If this was asked first, I would have disagreed. But after hearing your story, it is necessary to an extent.
No. It's not.
Mm-hmm. If you're hunting for food, then you're saying that your life is more important than that other animal's life. And that is more reasonable to me than saying that your pleasure or your trophy or whatever is.
I think that's like kind of fair enough, but it's like my life's also more important than like other people's lives. Like, I would say that, like, so like some random person, like me and some random person are in a plane crash. It's me or them. It's them. It's like, I remember like a lad that I knew, as he's like Lewis, you know, me and you, he's like, oh no, it's like you and a pig on a desert island. You and a pig on a desert island. Who's it gonna be? It's like, you or the pig. It's when I first went vegan. I was like, mate, if it was me or you on a desert island, it's gonna be you. Like, that's the way this is going. If we're breaking down ethics, like that's the crack. Like my responsibility to myself versus, or my ability to express my own subjectivity, or like the ability to express subjectivity as a whole in a way that mutually satisfies us both, has broken down. Like, yeah, like, I'm sorry, right? You're getting murked. I'm gonna have to eat so I can get off this island. Like, yeah, like, sorry.
It's more important than an animal's life.
There's also safety, which I now realize, and it's like almost 2 hours if you needed a medical emergency evacuation. So yeah, I don't know any killing besides safety and like food, and then we still try to make the most out of the body and the fur, and we'll try to like feed it to the dog team. So
I hate that whole shit. Like we try to make the most of it. That's so much more efficient. I don't care, right? If you can grow potatoes and stuff, then that's what you should be doing.
There is just the biology of land, and there's biology of carrying capacity, and there's biology of how these animals have to be, taken care of. I know that if
I don't know.
people are not hunting, those deer are going to starve. There's not enough food, there's not enough water, there's not enough shelter. So to me, I will take one for the team, and I will shoot a few deer this year to keep the land in check. And
like, I just hate that it's all like, it's for the deer. It's like, I murder deer for the deer. I do it not because I want to have the identity of a hunter, and I want to be seen as like that female hunter who's totally not one of those. I'm not like other girls, and I go and hunt my own food, and I'm so unique. No, I do it for the deer. It's like, oh, fuck off. Let's be honest, right? You're not doing it for the deer. And let's be honest, if we were having to do it for the deer, I certainly wouldn't be like, all right, like what we should be doing is going putting a bullet in them. It's like, why aren't we like, trying to euthanize them in a way that's perhaps a little bit more humane? Why aren't we trying to do catch and release first? Why aren't we trying to do anything else first? Why are we just murking them? We're just all right, like, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that states make a lot of money from hunting permits, does it?
ecosystem in check.
I don't disagree that maintaining equilibrium of an ecosystem is important. My question to that would be like, what actually...
I'm going to start making the argument. I'm going to be part of Thanos. Like, I'm going to start, like, I'm only killing people for people. Like, I'm only killing, like, people in, like poor places that can't eat, so that more people have the food to eat. And I'm doing it for the greater good. I won't kill a mother with their babies, but if you're just a lone person walking home at night and you look a bit like you're consuming a few too many calories, I'm gonna wreck you for the people.
Sitting at the root cause of the deer.
I mean, shit, I could probably make this argument about like killing most of League of Legends community. That would be genuinely like better for the people.
Overpopulation is the root cause that people aren't hunting enough.
Carrying capacity when humans take up 90% of land biomass.
Or is the root cause that their land is being taken away? But me making assumptions, hunting is a band-aid solution.
Like, I wish I could answer a very smart...
Why is it humans' decisions to kill overpopulated animals? Just wondering. I mean, just wonder a little bit further, and I think you'll arrive at the conclusion that, like, they want to keep the...
Yeah, it's a bit harder to answer that. He's like, well, if you just wonder a little bit further, and he starts wondering, like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why are we doing this again?
Delicate ecosystem whose balance has been disrupted by humans existing regardless. You don't need to control the population if you give back the natural space to animals? Okay, but that's...
Like, or we could just try and... Like, I think the bullshit about this all is, right? Like, so many animals are killed to protect farms. That's what people don't even realize. Like, it's a lot of, a lot of the species that we're talking about, that are being hunted are being hunted for the protection of farms. That a lot of the permits given out aren't for conservation. They're for profits. That they're not to protect wildlife for the most part. So most hunting's not for conservational purposes. Like, I don't know where this myth being perpetuated by hunters. Like, it's like, oh, certain species will die and starve out, and we really care about conservation. It's like the only reason that you would want a species to survive is so that you can come back next year and shoot it again. That like I don't know why anyone would listen to some real, like, stupidly vested interests on this.
It's a fucking idiotic take. Like, what are you? You're saying that in Twitch chat, dude. Like, which means that you take advantage of technology that, like, literally relies on infrastructure, which literally means that, like, you've destroyed natural land that animals used to live on. Like, that's such a, are you gonna go live in a fucking cave? Like, I don't understand.
And my girlfriend was just like, remember, like, to tell them that, like, because there's loads of hunters that they say to us all the time, like, if I don't kill an animal, that it's gonna get, like, killed by, like, a wolf or, like, a fox or something, and it'll be horrible. And by me shooting this rabbit or deer, I'm stopping it getting killed by a mountain lion or something, which would be a much more vicious death. And it's like, well, reality check. That mountain lion's still gonna need to eat. But now you've killed one deer and it's going to eat another deer. Like, that's what's going on. 2 animals have now died rather than 1. And a lot of the time, it's not to put an animal out of its misery. Like, they don't come across, like, some sort of, like, horribly injured deer. And they're like, oh my God, I need to rescue this deer. I'm going to, like, rescue it from its suffering. I'm very sorry. And I euthanize this animal. Like, no, it's like, oh, I'm going to find this healthy, good-looking animal that just so happens to not be the most suitable for me to eat, and also like the best looking animal. That's the one I'm gonna shoot. And like Hassan talking about farming, there's the dumbest thing. Like 70% of our farmland our farmland could be reduced by 70%. 70% of farmland could be just either rewilded or, you know, repurposed if we didn't feed animals the food that could be fed to humans. Vegan diets are way more efficient in terms of land use.
Understand.
Someone just said because hunters kill the hunters kill the natural predators too. Absolutely.
He's right. Killing off apex predators like wolves that keep deer in check is causing a major problem. Humans are a virus. I mean, yeah, we are a virus, but, like, at least I don't know. I recognize it.
No, you don't, though. You acted in such a way that's like, oh, human interests valuable, animal interests not valuable. He's not really saying much, is he, on this topic? Like, he doesn't really have any, like, genuine, like, takes. Speed this up, man.
Dumb argument. By that reasoning, you can't even have a hut. I mean, I think it is a dumb argument, yes. You criticize society, yet you participate in it, curious. But it's not a you criticize society, yet you participate in an argument, because these people...
It totally is, because you could even have a society which is more environmentally friendly, which would be a vegan society.
People are literally saying, like, we killed off all the natural predators, so what we have to do is behave in the way that the natural predators would and try to keep the population in check so that invasive species don't destroy or further disrupt the ecosystem.
And, like, it's even, like, blown out of proportion, apparently, like, how much natural predators even benefit the ecosystem. So, like, when they talked about, I know that people argue that with the rehabilitation of wolves into Yellowstone, they said all of this stuff was done because of the this, like, cool, like, ecological stuff was done because of the reintroduction of wolves in Yellowstone, but apparently it was way more complex than that, and the wolves were, like, a small part of it.
Like, I think there is a middle ground here. which is, you know, abolishing factory farming, which will make meat production very expensive for the most part.
No, like it's not just that. It needs subsidization. Like if you get rid of subsidization, you boycott meat, dairy, and eggs, and then you know, essentially go for more ecologically friendly plant products if you can as well. That's even better. We could live a way more sustainable lifestyle. Whoa.
Which I don't necessarily have a problem with, as long as there are ethical alternatives that are still delicious and yummy. You know what I mean? And also protein rich, but yummy being the most significant part here.
But there are really delicious like vegan options. That's the worst, like the most annoying thing. Ooh. Like, oh, thank you. Right, so like this is like fried tofu, like a tofu pot pie, I think. Is that what you mean? I know it was delicious. I know it was really nice. You get some really delicious vegan food. Like you've got like vegan alternatives now that are really cheap and delicious. So I don't know why you'd even like, not only that, it's like protein rich, like soy protein isolate and stuff like that is incredibly high in like textured vegetable protein is so high in protein and lower in fat, like way low. Like if we look at protein per calorie, I think it really outdoes like beef and stuff like that anyway. Like the like protein rich, like you know what I hate like this, and people like really blow human protein needs out of the fucking sky. Like the thing that people need I remember like reading a while ago that, and I genuinely used to believe that I needed 300 grams of protein a day. This was when I was like much younger and an idiot. And then when I did the research, I needed like about 100 and something. It was like 110. I need now like 111 grams of protein for peak athletic performance. And that's really, really like attainable. Like especially since everyone who's usually like an athlete is using supplements like that. They're taking like, I don't know any non-vegan who's not drinking like whey protein when they're like athletes and stuff. You can drink like Viva Life protein's really delicious as well. Like it's like I'm not even just saying this. Viva Life protein, and I'm not sponsored, is genuinely the most delicious protein I've ever had. I've had like Optimum Nutrition, I've had PhD, I've had like loads of different protein brands. I've tried their platinums, I've tried that like all the different shit from them before I was vegan, and they're all disgusting and horrible. But Viva Life protein, salted caramel maca, is absolutely delicious. That shit is so good.
And lab meat, hopefully, eventually, that is delicious. But I think that like it's silly as fuck to be like we gotta do reparations for animals. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. Okay, well you do the reparations for animals then. I'm good.
I've never heard anyone say anything about reparations for animals. What are you talking about? Like I've never heard that in my life. I've been in the vegan community for 6 years. I've consumed so much vegan content. I've never once in my life heard reparations for animals. What? Like that's like, oh, like we need to give animals the right to vote.
Part, I think. I would eat a...
Right. I've never heard that in my life. Yeah. Who argues for that? I don't know. I've never heard that argument in my life. Strawberry My Vegan Protein is the best. I'll give that a go. Like, I know, like, I've never heard that in my life. Like, ever. Once.
A 3-month-old baby, 100%. Yikes, dude. Well, I mean, one white-tailed deer that cares if a human dies. Yeah,
My
I mean,
dog's got a cone
obviously
on.
animals don't give a shit if humans fucking die.
I don't know if
think
you can see that. Like, poor little Charlie here has had to be coned because he keeps hurting himself. And so for his own interests, we've had to cone him. Sorry, Charlie. It's a good boy. It's a good little lamp. He's like the opposite of a lamp because he's like so dark. He looks like he's like a reverse lamp. Like he just draws the light in.
Vegans recognize that. They say that we're smarter than animals, so we do know better, and we should operate on the virtue that we do know better. You know? Like, I get it.
100%. We have What is this gonna like focus? There we go. Like we have like responsibilities and ethics because we are essentially. Why is this not focusing, man? There we go, ish. I think, yeah, like we have an ethical responsibility and we have ethical, we have ethics, like as a whole because we're capable of self-consciousness. That doesn't mean it only applies to humans. It just means that our conceptions are only available to those with a certain amount of intelligence. Imprisoned jellyfish and corn dogs, exactly. It's obviously not real. Like there was actually someone on Amazon asking if they are real jellyfish. Like I'm not even joking. Like there's a genuine question on Amazon asking if they're real jellyfish. They're not. In case you are wondering, they're not real jellyfish. And yes, my dog is corned up. Sorry, Charlie.
Okay, I guess you don't want reparations for slavery, LMAO. Dude, this is what I'm saying. Like, no, you fucking vegan idiot. I think humans are more important than other animals. I am a fucking speciesist, dude. Humans, by virtue of being human, to me, are more important than animals. Other animals. Humans are animals too.
But why? Like that's all that vegans usually ask is like, why are humans more important? Like, and you got an argument for it, and especially to the point, it's not that they're just more important. It's that the most trivial preferences. You know, the preference for meat, dairy, and eggs is worth more than the entire life, liberty, and well-being of any non-human animal. Like, come on, man. Like, what? Like, what? Where's the argument for that?
Why is it that every vegan has to compare animals to black people? Like, it's just like really fucking weird, dude. Not every vegan, obviously, but like, you know, vegans love doing that shit, and it's so fucking strange.
I don't ever compare animals to black people in a way that I wouldn't compare them to white people. I mean, I can understand. I know a lot of vegans compare like slavery, but I think that's a fair analysis. Like the disregard of an individual's subjectivity for the interests of another individual or another class of individuals is exactly what slavery was about. I mean, in fact, this comparison was made at the time slavery was being essentially being rejected. Jeremy Bentham made this point. What was it, 18th century, where he said the French have now realized. This is before I think Britain had even made slavery illegal, and he was obviously on the side of rejecting slavery. The French have now realized that the blackness of skin is no justification, like essentially for unethical treatment. And one day will we realize that the number of legs or the size of I can't say it. The number of legs and other animal parts are no justification for this. And then he goes on to say, what is it that should trace the insuperable line? Is it the faculty of reason or perhaps the faculty of discourse? But a full-grown horse or dog is by far more a communicable and rational animal than a baby of a week, of an infant of a week, a month, or even a day, a week, or a month old. But if it wasn't, what would it avail? The question is not, can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? And I think that's really what we need to consider in this scenario. The value of an individual's life isn't determined by their intellectual capacities. It isn't determined by the color of their skin. It isn't determined by the number of legs they have. It isn't determined by their cultural beliefs. It isn't determined by their, religious beliefs or anything like that. It's inherent, and it can't be taken from them. And so the perpetuation of one life over another for the preferences, for trivial preferences, it's never justified.
No, because in the mind of a vegan, they want to claim that like all animals are still equal with respect to different species, and that's why like a vegan saying that he doesn't feel like he's being racist.
STV.
You see what I'm saying?
And like, well, based on data, they're done. I mean, look at Los Angeles and Dallas, and like, where are animals going? Right. They're dying. I mean, but what is the solution? I don't know.
The U.S. a lot of the times has tried to decide what animals need.
There are plenty of reasonable proposed plans by environmental biologists that would reduce human land occupation from 90% to 50 to 70. It isn't living in a hut. Stop straw manning. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'm not I don't have an issue
That was Oxford research as well, man.
with it, dude.
To go or not without the guidance of indigenous people who have been doing this for thousands of years and who have relationships with the animals.
Like, no, right? Like, your relationship with an animal, if you're killing it, is exploitative. It's unjustified. It's like master slave, lord and bondsman, like lord and serf, man. Like, that's the relationship you have with an animal, an exploitative one. I don't care what like kind of mystical beliefs you want to tie into this relationship. It's the same thing as the divine right of kings. It doesn't exist, and even if it does exist, it doesn't justify the unethical treatment. Like, no spiritual belief justifies the perpetuation of causing suffering unnecessarily upon another.
There are solutions, there are people that know it, and we need to push people in power to uplift voices who have this knowledge.
My diet is healthier.
Humans need to become vegans because that's the only way to stop the orcas from rising up and killing us.
Hey. The question is healthier than what? I chose to come up here because my diet is healthier than when I was not eating a vegan diet. I love a Beyond Burger. Is that healthier than eating rice, beans, and collard?
Yeah, vegans love talking about how healthy their diet is, and then we never talk about cashew butter, okay? Here's a conversation that you should be having. Okay, you can have an unhealthy fucking diet as a vegan, all right?
What the fuck's cashew butter got to do with healthy diet? Man, I don't think cashew butter is like really unhealthy. Like, out of all the bad, like, that just shows you like Hassan's vegan knowledge here. Like, a vegan diet isn't like cashew butter usually. like if all the nasty stuff that I eat, like Doritos, Pringles, like pot noodles and shit, like cashew butter would be like, wow, I'm treating myself today. Ethics semantics, go vegan for the memes. It's funny as fuck to see people mauled over you eating a carrot. And I think ethics schmethics rather. I know what you mean, man. Like, I don't know why people really do get like mad about being like others choosing not to consume animal products, and it's because they see their own monstrosity in our actions. If we consider it wrong, they're like, well, why do you consider it wrong? Do you think I'm wrong? You think I'm wrong? Like, yeah, coconut oil maybe, like, but even coconut oil, like, you can replace every single animal fat with any plant fat, and it's still more healthy. You still get healthier. You still get healthier health outcomes, like better health outcomes. Like, the reality is that a vegan diet is healthier. So if you're eating like a bad diet, like regardless, like I don't know why it's struggling to like focuses all of a sudden. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. It's struggling so hard. I don't know why. How did it land there? Like, oh, I did it. Focused. Fucking camera. I wonder if I like... maybe increase the light. Wow, that's way too bright. Let's see, that might help. Right. There we go. I think it was just like the low light. It was getting to it. I know, cashew butter is like... cashew butter is like fancy and really like healthier than like... it's probably like 100% cashews as well. Like peanut butter is probably more unhealthy. Because of like the palm oil or like the shea oil in it. But yeah, like out of all the things he could have said.
Right? Cashew butter is literally, like, nut butter is a cheat code. Any food that has cashew butter in it is going to be delicious. It's going to be delicious. It's so fucking tasty. It's so yummy. Not necessarily healthy, though. Like, there's plenty of...
It's not that bad, though, is it really? Like,
unhealthy-ass vegan foods. Oreos and Pop-Tarts are vegan? Yeah. Vegans in the old subreddit are always banned when they argue that slavery is similar to industrial farming. Yeah. Not to mention how cashews are sourced. Yeah.
Greens every day? No, it's not. Do I believe that eating plant-based is healthier than eating animal products?
Slavery absolutely is comparable to the factory farming and industrial farming. And the way that we treat animals today is of a comparably ethically to the way that other races have been treated, the way that classes have been treated. it's essentially another form of prejudice. That's why it's called speciesism, the same as why it's called sexism, and the way that it's called racism. It's because all of these share a single ethical notion in common, that these are unjustified characteristics from which people perpetuate their moral superiority or their ethical value as being higher.
Yes.
And if you're super, super intentional and informed about what you're putting in your body, then it's going to be healthier than someone who's not.
That's also healthier on an emotional and mental level. There's this detachment, this emotional detachment that you're going through when you're eating an animal, and that to me is emotionally unhealthy.
Okay, dude. Yeah, right. Okay. Nah, dude, I'm pretty sure fucking most meat eaters don't give a fuck, and they don't even think about it.
Awareness is one of the healthiest things that we can have.
I know if you like search veganism like online, especially on YouTube, you can see very dangerous vegan diets being like just told to like a massive audience of like young impressionable people. Like,
unfortunately, that's absolutely right. Like raw vegan diets, especially or really like bad vegan diets, can be perpetuated like all over the place. There's vegan diets that are healthy. There's vegan diets that are unhealthy. It just depends on which one you endorse. Like there are very healthy vegan diets, and British and American dietetic associations consider vegan diets suitable for all stages of life and even suitable to treat some diseases. So the reality of the situation is, are vegan diets healthy? Well, it depends on the diet you're eating. Are they atypically more healthy than the standard American diet or the standard British diet? Absolutely. And would the incorporation of animal products into these diets worsen them? Yeah, they would.
But like Oreos are vegan, Twizzlers are vegan, and it's been 1 a.m. and I'm down to sleep with Oreos. I'm just like,
What does this nut butter take? The American Heart Association recommends eating about 4 servings of unsalted nuts a week, choosing raw or dry roasted nuts rather than nuts cooked in oil. 1 serving is a small handful is 2 tablespoons of nut butter. You think motherfuckers are eating 8 tablespoons of nut butter per week? The shit that I'm talking about is literally 8 tablespoons of nut butter in one fucking meal, dog. What are you talking about? That's the whole point. That's actually my point, is that like there are incredibly delicious substitutes in vegan alternatives. It's just that they're delicious for a reason, because they're not very healthy. You know what I mean? It's so dumb. Like, obviously I don't mean like eating appropriately as a vegan is unhealthy. That's so stupid. I would never make that argument.
That's good. I'm glad he wouldn't make that argument.
I think most vegans understood exactly what I'm talking about, and now non-vegans are the ones who are arguing against this take. I mean, even the vegans on this YouTube video understand exactly what I'm saying.
Why did I do that?
Just wait till you're 30.
Yeah, I'm 24, so I feel like I'll just keep on kicking. I don't know.
Coming here, I want to be very careful in extremes. Like my meat is, my diet is healthier.
No, it's not. It's not though. Like meat's associated with like so many chronic illnesses. Like, I'm sorry to say this, but like even the consumption of animal protein itself is associated with kidney damage. And that's not even talking about the massive amounts of saturated fat and cholesterol, which are incredibly bad for you and associated with our number 1 causes of death, like whether it's dementia or heart disease. Atherosclerotic plaque. Sclerotic plaque is basically what kills a lot of our population. People eat too much saturated fat. It basically calcifies. It forms it makes them increases that cholesterol, their overall cholesterol, and their LDL cholesterol, which causes it to calcify, and eventually the arteries become blocked, and they have heart attacks, or they get dementia, and they even get like what's it called? Erectile dysfunction, And I know it's not killing you, but it's still not pleasant. Like the reality is that a lot of vascular disorders, like meat, dairy, and eggs, are associated with vascular disorders. It's not even controversial at this point. It's just we know it for a fact. And that's not even talking about things like cancers and how heme iron is associated with the calcification of cholesterol, when you're consuming blood, or toxic iron levels and stuff like that. There's so much horrible stuff. And antibiotic resistance. People don't even realize it. They are consuming the product that they are going to need to survive at a point. Like, you are going to have to consume at one point in your life antibiotics, and you're going to have to cross your fingers and hope that antibiotic is effective on whatever infection you have. But you are massively reducing the likelihood that it is going to work because you're consuming animal products 3 times a day, which are fed antibiotics to make it more profitable. So yeah, I'm sorry, your animal products aren't healthy. Like, go home.
I don't know that. I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you. I believe the meat I eat is better than what you would get at McDonald's. I just think it would be so hard to be a vegan. It seems like so much work.
It's actually the easiest thing in the world. Like, being a vegan is so easy. The hardest thing about being a vegan is every idiot who comes to you and's like, how could you be a vegan? Like, I can't believe you're a vegan. Like, oh, vegans are, you know how you know if someone's vegan? They tell you. That's it's the social stigma and the rejection and the way that vegans are treated that makes it hard to be a vegan. It has nothing to do about eating a vegan diet. Like, I do not find it hard to eat Domino's, Papa John's, Oreos, Doritos, and pot noodles. I don't find it hard to eat chilies and curries and buy like cotton or like acrylic or whatever. None of that is hard. Like, believe it or not, that's actually really easy. A lot of the time I'm actually really happy to be doing it. What is hard is when I get rejected by swaths of individuals who place me as some sort of as I say, some eatable father, restricting their lives because they're incapable of approaching their own monstrosity.
There's a learning curve.
It's not hard in the grand scheme of things. I feel a lot better putting in the work because I feel more empowered, I guess you could say. The definition of veganism is just as far as what is practicable and possible. It's all about doing your best.
Look, possible and practicable. I hate this when people try and say it's about doing your best. No, it's actually a standard. It's as if you aren't doing what you can do and what is reasonable to do, then you aren't doing enough. That's what veganism's about. So if you're killing animals when you don't need to, you're not vegan. If you're killing animals and it's reasonable for you to stop, if there's some reason that you if there's some sort of unreasonableness for whatever reason that you severely, like you'd be on the brink of starvation or something because you're in an African tribe or something like that, then yeah, like that's separate. But again, possible and practicable, right? Doesn't mean do your best. It doesn't mean practical, like what is beneficial for you. Practicable, what is reasonable. That's the standard. Reason and like essentially it's all it implies can. Right? That's essentially all it is. So yeah. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna have a 5-minute Q&A and then I'm gonna bounce because I'm gonna go and eat a tofu pot pie. So yeah. If you've got any questions, drop them into chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Why die on this hill? I'm not gonna die on this hill. It is easy as hell. Like the people who find it hard, like I'm sorry. Like, of all the things I've done in my life, like it's just not hard. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you do find it hard, like, boo-hoo, do it anyway. A good vegan nutrition book. I'd check out Dr. Greger's, like, How Not to Die. And he's even got a cookbook, which is pretty cool. Yes, I do feed my dog vegan. My dog's been vegan for many years now. He's happy and healthy, apart from having to be coned because of his allergies. But yeah, that's related to like the outdoors in summer. The part flare up in summer so bad, bless him. But yeah, apart from that, like yeah, not apart from that, I do feed my dog vegan. Heidegger or Sartre? Heidegger. Yeah. What's my take on natural law? Natural law is pretty interesting, to be entirely honest with you. I think natural laws like Aquinas, for example, is really interesting. I think that Hegel sometimes, like, there is actually a title, like if you see like the elongated version of Hegel's philosophy of right, it includes the words natural law, because Hegel's not actually arguing for, let's say, like a human nature, but he's arguing for like a consideration of will itself, and that there is a logos, an inherent law-like structure within being. And in that I agree with natural law theorists. Where I don't agree is placing essence prior to existence. But you get like existential Thomists and stuff. So like, yeah. Do I agree with Dr. Avi on killing predators? Honestly, I haven't really thought about it enough. I think that we should really take the opportunity to try and, rather than kill predators, I think genetic modification and stuff like that would be much more beneficial. If we can prevent suffering in any way, shape or form, prevent harming other individuals, then we should try and do it. 16 years vegan, 3 meals per day. It's anything but hard. Exactly. I completely agree, man. Like it's not like what people think it is. I thought it was going to be unbelievably difficult. Like before I went vegan, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to give up everything. I didn't even give up anything. This was back like a few years ago before the vegan products like even existed. Like I've broadened my palate now way more than I would have if I hadn't went vegan. PP, favorite kind of bean. Well, I've really like black beans, like for like nutrition wise. And I do like them in chilies and stuff. But if I'm honest, I'd probably say either like pinto beans because I think they're delicious. Actually, it's probably black beans or pinto beans. And I'm also a fan of kidney beans. I love beans, man. Beans are great. Like genuinely, beans are like I love beans so much. I don't even know where to go. Right, I'll have to scroll up. Well, I'm going to have a chicken pot pie because I'm not rich and white. No, you're just dumb. Like, fuck. Like, you can just have like what the fuck is the difference between a tofu and a chicken pot pie, man? Tofu's not even that expensive. Like, tofu's cheap as shit. Like, you can get tofu for really, really cheap. And even if you can get like vegan alternatives for cheaper than meat anyway. And you could even just use something like beans or like lentils or something, which is even cheaper again. Just an idiot. 5 minutes. All right, quick, cool. I thought one second. I thought going vegan would be hard, but it's not at all. I completely agree, Bao. I completely agree. What's your definition of exploitation and your definition of coercion? Okay, well, exploitation, I would usually use like a Kantian understanding. You using an individual as a means to an end and not an end, treating an individual as a means to an end and not an end in themselves. That's the kind of definition of exploitation I would usually go down. What that looks like in society is culturally defined. What we would consider exploitative acts of respect and not respect, and how that works and overall. It doesn't mean that it's relative. It just means that it can only be explained through our ethical concepts. In terms of coercion, I would say when I say like forcing an individual to defy their own interests, or using just say like forcing an individual to defy their own interests, I'd say is coercion, especially through psychological means. I know that like a lot of people like to try and say that coercion can only be done with threat of violence. I completely disagree. I think that misunderstands the way that power works and operates. And I mean, depending on how broadly we define violence can be ideological. They take, for example, what narcissists do with terms of gaslighting, causing harm to individuals. I would say that is an act of violence against another individual, even though they aren't actually, hitting them in the face or something like that. Convincing someone that they're crazy is a lot worse than convincing hitting someone in the nose. It's just it's just an example. Hitting someone in the, you don't think so? You don't 50, you think it's the same? Well, debaters. PP, what's your favorite argument for ontological idealism or favorite objection to physicalism? Honestly, I think that the Kantian position, the transcendental argument, and the unit, for example, the unity of our perception, and what he makes in the Critique of Pure Reason is probably my favorite arguments against like the empiricist tradition as a whole. The understanding that we can only understand the point that we can only understand physical objects in the first place through a mental application of concepts. So yeah. I don't have any recommendations for you there. Sorry, man. Going vegan seemed a bit difficult at first, but in reality that becomes very easy once you figure out what you're doing, and the difficulty is all up front, and then it's smooth sailing. Exactly. And there's so many channels now to help you. Like there's so many sources to help you, like resources. A philosophy student using his own anecdote to what's he doing? A philosophy student uses his own anecdote to call something easy is fairly mad. Not really. Like, it depends on how we're defining easy. Like, I mean, if you're saying that it's like, it depends on what you're calling difficult. All I'm saying is that I would consider something easy if it doesn't require an individual to sacrifice anything other than a trivial desire. And in terms of motivation, I believe that motivation can, that in terms of reason can be a primary feature in motivation, and in terms of the endorsement of a given desire. So yeah, I don't think it's that difficult. I think that our desires can be sublimated in our society in a pretty intuitive way in terms of veganism. So at least in our culture and in our society, going vegan, as in like eating a vegan diet, is easy. And that's what I said. I said the hardest thing as well about being vegan is non-vegans and how they treat you and the cultural rejection. So like, I would say that's the hardest part. I wouldn't say that's easy. Excuse me. All right, okay. I grew up vegetarian. Wait, can someone achieve an undergraduate level philosophy education without going to university? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know many people online that are better educated than half the people I went to university with. I grew up vegetarian since my parents were hipster vegetarians. The hardest thing for me to drop is cheese and eggs, because practically everything we eat has them in. I've never eaten meat in my life. Well, why don't you just try like the alternatives? You can, like, if you're struggling with those products, replace those products first. Think about ways you can replace them. So you like cheesy flavors. Nutritional yeast is like a much healthier alternative and can make things cheesy. If you want something to genuinely replace the actual experience of cheese, there are vegan cheeses now. There's also vegan egg replacements, but you can also just use something like tofu, or you can use, and if you're cooking, you can use apple sauce or flax seeds and chia seeds. There's lots of alternatives for that. Try and veganize your favorite meals, and try to go vegan that way. If you can't do it, then try and broaden your palate. That's what I would recommend. Wait, what? I'm vegan and I respect you, but everything I've read scientifically indicated that cats/dogs need animal protein as carnivores. Definitely not dogs. Dogs are omnivores anyway. They need a certain amount of crude protein essentially to produce their own taurine. But dogs are healthy on a vegan diet, like absolutely. I even went to the vet before I turned my dog vegan and asked the veterinary surgeon, like the surgeon there, whether my dog would be healthy before like putting him on a vegan diet. And he was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem with it. So I even got the okay from a vet. The science behind it is absolutely unanimous about dogs. Dogs can eat a vegan diet, no problem. They just got to get adequate dog food. So just make sure you get a solid dog food for them, like Benevo or like V-Dog or something like that. And then in terms of cats, apparently cats can eat a vegan diet. There are some people that claim that cats can go blind, but a lot of the taurine in cat food is synthetic. I don't know enough about vegan cats to say whether you can do it or not. I know that Vegan Gains has a vegan cat. I know that he told me that he did a lot of research, and I know the man does do a lot of research. So go check out his streams and ask him if it's something that you're interested in. Oh, and yeah, Hench Herbivore also has vegan cats. Yeah, he does. Yeah. So yeah, check out them. But they might know more about vegan cats. I know Mike the Vegan says that you can't have vegan cats, but he also does in the same video say that you can have vegan dogs. I know that Bite Size Vegan did a video on how to have a vegan dog. Vegan dogs is like the easiest thing in the world. Dogs are omnivorous. They can eat both animal and plant foods. As long as you get enough protein, they'll produce their own taurine. The opportunistic predators. Opportunistic eaters, as it were. But yeah, they're predatory in nature. Anything that you would do habitually comes easy. For those who haven't made it a habit, it may not be easy. Personally, I went vegan after going vegetarian. It can be easy to overrate how easy it is. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, once you build the habits, it's easier and easier. Like 100%. I agree with that. But it's just a matter of like taking the opportunity to build those habits. But I'm not going to lie. I don't think that it's difficult in terms of sublimating your desires. I don't think that it's difficult in terms of like it's restrictive. I don't see where the difficulty necessarily lies. Yeah, I think vegan food is better. I actually agree, Bao. I've had a much better time with food since going vegan. I've even got like some of my favorite foods that weren't vegan now vegan, like cheesy chips and garlic sauce. I used to love that. Like that was like one of the things I was like, no, I'm giving this up. And now I can like order a takeaway and get vegan cheesy chips and garlic sauce. Like pizza burgers, I can get like a vegan pizza burger. I can get vegan pizzas and like vegan like whoppers and stuff. There's so much. Like it's so easy. I like how there's like a bean debate going on in the I found going vegan very hard. Well, that's your anecdote, man. If my anecdote's my anecdote. I'm just saying in terms of people's access to food in our society, vegan food is pretty much as accessible as non-vegan food. In terms of junk food and stuff, there's loads of vegan tasty, like deliberately high fat, salty, like sugary, delicious foods. It's not as hard as what people like to make it out. How you doing, son? You okay? If you live with your parents, it's much harder. I will say that. Like obviously, if you live, but then my mom's vegan now, so I don't live with my mom, but like she's vegan now anyway. Going vegan 1.5 decades ago, I imagine was way harder. It's ridiculously easy today. Yeah, like if you think it's hard now to go vegan, people who are vegan like 20 years ago are absolute troopers. Like my God, like the point where you couldn't buy vital wheat gluten even to make seitan. You couldn't buy seitan. You couldn't buy gluten. And so the only way you could make seitan was to make a dough and stand and knead it under cold water to wash off everything but the gluten. But I'm actually going to go and eat now, guys. Thank you for watching this stream. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Remember to ring that bell. Check out my course, An Introduction to Western Philosophy. And consider donating to help future streams and stuff like that. I really appreciate everyone who's watched. And as always, try to gain some perspective.